Hey, it's Conrad Thompson in this week's edition of Something to Wrestle With. Bruce Prichard could be brought to you by you. We are looking for advertisers here on the show, and we love talking about our great sponsors. Isn't that right, Bruce?
Without a doubt. And without great sponsors, who knows how long we're going to be able to bring this show to you for free. So if you would like to sponsor the show, if you want to continue to hear Something to Wrestle With, A, support our sponsors, but B, you can be a sponsor of Something to Wrestle With Bruce Prichard. And if you're interested in doing it, send us an email. And email is pretty simple. Send it to somethingtowrestlewith@aol.com. And that's right, me, Bruce Prichard, I will get right back with you and get you all the information.
It's important to mention that Bruce has not always been on the cutting edge of technology, as you can tell with that email address. But, man, we've got the technology that tracks the numbers here. This show gets bigger by the week. Hundreds of thousands of people are listening every single week, and we've got their data. So if your product, if your service, if you're really looking for that niche, that demo of men 18 to 54, woo, I know where they are. They're listening to this show right now. And we can break it down by age, we can break it down by geography. Whatever the data is you're looking for, we can help provide it for you. But most importantly, we want you to know we care about growing your business. We're going to do a good job for you here at Something to Wrestle With, and we can guarantee it. Leather by Dan's been with us from the beginning. He's tickled, and you will be too. Send Bruce an email. It's not going to go to some corporate junk. It doesn't go to a board. It goes directly to the man whose name is on the show, Bruce Prichard. And we'd be happy to go ahead and get you all of our advertising packages and even find a way to involve you in the show. If you'd like to sponsor a segment, if you'd like to appear on the show with us, if you'd like to actually have your questions asked right here on the show, we'd be more than happy to involve you. We want you to be a part of the show and not a part that people fast forward. Punch it in your deal right now. Something to Wrestle With at AOL.com.
The following program is an MLW Radio.com production.
From the territories to Titan Towers to TNA and all points in between, he's seen and done it all. And now, he's here to share the real story behind wrestling's biggest moments, controversies, and characters. The MLW Radio Network presents Something to Wrestle with Bruce Prichard.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Something to Wrestle With. Bruce Prichard. Bruce, what's going on, man? It's a very special Black Friday edition of the show here, and a lot of podcasts are doing best ofs or taking the week off, or they've got something in the can. But, man, we're taping something brand new, despite what all the rumors and innuendo are. The show's not in the can. I'm sick, and we're still powering through. Roll Tide.
Well, and all because we want to do something new. We want to do something different. And let's go ahead and tell the truth. We did do a TNA Part 2. We did that a couple of weeks ago. We even did a TNA Part 2 last night, and it wasn't our best work.
We feel like we can do better, and I guess we should pull back the curtain. We've actually done a few shows now, maybe a half dozen that are in the can that won't make air when we were just trying to get comfortable with one another and get familiar. And whenever we think we can do a better job, by God, we come back in here and start all over again. Nothing but the best for you, the listeners, and we appreciate all your support. And the support has been so overwhelming. Somebody wants to take the show live. And earlier today at notarib.com, tickets went on sale for the very first ever Something to Wrestle With live and in person. Bruce, tell everybody what they need to know.
Well, it is Not a Rib. And if you go to notarib.com and you're going to be in the Orlando area for WrestleMania weekend, on Saturday night, April the 1st, we are going to be doing our first ever Something to Wrestle With live. Conrad and I will both be there. It'll be a stand-up show, and the cool thing about it, it'll be standing room only, where there's not a bad seat to be had in the entire club. It's going to be held at Back Booth, which is only 2 blocks away from the Amway Center. And why is that important? Why is that important, Conrad?
Well, it's right after NXT, so if you're planning to do the ultimate WrestleMania weekend, we're not forcing you to choose anything. Go enjoy the NXT show at the Amway Center, and then just a couple of blocks away, like a 6-minute walk, door to door, you're right there at back booth. It's within walking distance, so you really can hit all the hot spots, and you can come see Bruce Prichard in person and watch me grill him under the hot lights of back booth. And tickets are on sale right now at notarib.com. There are a couple of different ticket levels there. There is a VIP meet and greet. We're going to try to do something special for you guys. We really appreciate your support. And if you plan to attend this show, you should certainly be sporting one of the Pro Wrestling Tees Something to Wrestle With shirts. Would you agree, Bruce?
Oh, hell yeah. And you can get that at prowrestlingtees.com/Bruce Prichard. You know, we got the brand new Rumor and Innuendo shirt that my good friend Matt McGrath up in Halifax, he laid out for me, and that's actually selling like hotcakes. That's been great. And for a very limited time, Pro Wrestling Tees has a big sale going on where you can get 20% off on all of your purchases. So hell, I got 13 shirts, man. Get one for the family. They make a great Christmas gift.
They really do make a cool Christmas gift for any wrestling fan in your family. And today is the only big sale that Pro Wrestling Tees has each year. It's the biggest sale. It's the Black Friday sale. All the good deals around the world are happening today. So cruise on over to prowrestlingtees.com/Bruce Prichard. Pick yourself up a couple of shirts, and then by the time the show rolls around on April 1st, you'll be hooked up because you went to notarib.com and got your VIP ticket. How cool would it be to be wearing a Brother Love t-shirt when you get your picture made with Brother Love? That's a pretty cool thing. Something to Wrestle With is making it happen for you right now at notarib.com and at prowrestlingtees.com/Bruce Prichard.
And check out how cool this was. One of our listeners bought a couple of shirts, and they bought it on Sunday afternoon. By the time that I got the email and I called them back on Sunday night, they were at Survivor Series, and they were rocking it, and that was just cool as hell because I called right before Enzo and Cass made their entrance. I didn't know they were at Survivor Series, but they picked up the phone. They said, "Who's this?" I said, "Hey, it's Bruce Prichard." They said, "Oh my God, I'm at Survivor Series." And we talked for a couple seconds. Didn't want to take too much time away from them so they could enjoy the pay-per-view. And that was cool. I thought that was pretty neat.
Hey, let me just throw this out there, too. If you can prove that you got a Something to Wrestle With sign on a WWE broadcast or any wrestling TV show broadcast, if you can prove that that happened, odds are in your favor. You're going to be getting a little box of gimmicks at your house, and that's not a rib. Is that fair to say, Bruce?
Oh, yeah, that is definitely not a rib. So we'll take it. So if you can make that happen, that'd be a cool thing.
Absolutely. We appreciate all the support. We're overwhelmed with the support that we get online with the show. We try to be active with you on Twitter, too. If you haven't already, throw us some follows. The official show account is at Prichard Show. He's on Twitter at Bruce Prichard, and I am at Hey, it's Conrad. So those are the 3 follows you need to have, and you need to make sure you're following at Prichard Show, because at the very end of this show, we've got what I think will be our best poll yet. Bruce and I did a little research and actually spent a few minutes coming up with a really, really cool group of topics. This is something for everybody. And normally I can tell Bruce, hey, here's what's going to win. I have no idea what's going to win this one. I think this may be our best one yet.
Yeah, neither do I. If only we had a championship belt to be able to crown the winner with.
Yeah.
You know where you could get one?
I'll tell you this. If you cruise on over to leatherbydan.com, that's where you can finish out all of your Black Friday shopping. You know, here's the deal, man. We're trying to get our shit in early on this episode, and you should try to get it in early at leatherbydan.com, but you're not going to find shit work. You're going to find high-quality hand craftsmanship. I'm telling you, when it comes to impressing a cow, this guy knows how to do it. It's leatherbydan.com, and his work, I'm telling you, is underrated. There are some people paying attention, even big-time casinos at big establishments here in the United States. They're ordering a whole boatload of belts for their high rollers. Where do they hear about it? Something to Wrestle With. This is going to be you got in at the ground floor. You got one of the early adopter belts. You've got a classic championship belt made at an affordable price very, very quickly and with payment plans, and it can be totally custom to you at leatherbydan.com. Lots of people are suggesting we're the podcast tag team champions of the MLW Radio Network. Well, hey, that's cool. What if you could be the champion of your sales organization or of your household or of a retirement or whatever your situation may be? He's even done wedding belts. Leatherbydan.com is our oldest sponsor. If you enjoy this show, if you appreciate this show, man, just go check him out. He's got lots of specials also today on Black Friday, but it's hard to beat this. Free shipping and a payment plan for a totally custom 3-plate nickel belt for only $1,050. The WWE is paying thousands of dollars, a multiple of this. And by the way, they're not nearly as nice as the work that Dan's doing. Guys from all over the world are making those belts for WWE right now. They're kind of trying to figure out who's the best. Let me tell you right now, leatherbydan.com is the best. Wouldn't you agree, Bruce?
Oh, without a doubt. And you're going to love the quality, and you're going to love the fact that he will do something unique to you, exactly what you were looking for, not what somebody else wants, not what somebody else already has. You make it for you and make it custom at Leather by Dan.
And he's a straight-up dude. It's worth mentioning. I know him personally. I think a lot of him. You will not be disappointed in doing business with him. I've done thousands of dollars worth of business long before I did podcasts. I knew Dan was the man, and you'll agree. Leatherbydan.com. The man was Vader. The man they call Vader. That was our topic last week. I got a lot of great feedback on this one, Bruce. What are people saying to you about it?
You know, it's crazy because I just got a lot of positive feedback for the most part. I think that is due to the simple fact that the host of this show does research that would rival, well, I can't say Rand McNally because that's the Matt people, isn't it? I'm thinking of Encyclopedia Britannica. There's one for the books. Now we have Wikipedia and the internet. Back in the day, we had the Encyclopedia Britannica. But Conrad does his homework and is extremely thorough. And for the most part, that was the compliments that I got on it. And I'm very appreciative of that. And we love it. We listen to all of it. And if there's any loose ends we leave, we try to address them. But I really didn't get any.
Well, I do have two that we should tie up, but before we get to that, since this kind of is our Thanksgiving show, I feel like I should tell you how thankful I am that you were able to go ahead and be convinced to do this podcast. This was all just a brain fart idea when we were hanging out together one day, and you told me the long story about the Radicals, and it's not even a topic I would have normally been super interested in, but you have a way of telling a story, man, that is just fascinating. You don't take yourself too seriously. You have a good sense of humor about things. And you can be honest when stuff sucked most of the time. And so because of that, I think that makes for a fun show. And because you and I are friendly in real life, it's okay if I bust your balls and push you on stuff. And I think the result is an entertaining show that I would listen to. And that's what I try to make sure that the listeners get every week, is something that I would listen to, because I'm the target demo. I'm just a fan. I'm not in the business. I'm not a worker. I'm not one of the boys. I'm just a guy who enjoys all things wrestling, and these podcasts are a blast, and all of that is a credit to you, Bruce, because without you really giving us an opportunity to kind of pretend we're at that boardroom and we're around the booking meetings and we're around the table or we're sitting by the pool with you and Pat and Vince, none of this will be possible. So I'm thankful that you've been convinced to give this a shot.
Hell, and I'm thankful you convinced me, because it's a humbling experience to think that as many people that actually do download us and listen to us on a week-to-week basis and interact with us on Twitter, for an old-timer like me, that's pretty damn humbling. The people remember and they appreciate it and they give two shits. And they do that by downloading our stuff and listening to it. And I do greatly appreciate it. It's a pretty cool deal. And I thank all of our listeners and help us out by supporting our sponsors. That's one thing I could ask. And we'll stay on the air. We'll be able to keep doing this thing for free for you. And I'm having a blast on top of it.
So hit us up on Twitter. We'd love to interact with you. Bruce is very active. I know he alluded to it earlier, but if you buy a T-shirt, he's going to give you a call and personally thank you. I don't know how you can find a more fan-friendly show here. You even pick the topic. So stay tuned at the end. You'll pick next week's topic. We'll kind of preview exactly what those are. But last week's topic was Vader, and I did have a couple of loose ends that I missed somehow. I need to apologize. Vader came back in 2005, very briefly, for Taboo Tuesday 2005. Jonathan Coachman was supposed to square off against Stone Cold Steve Austin, and in his corner, he put Goldust and Vader to kind of have his back. That wasn't the best showing for Vader, but he was there. And then, I'm sure we'll talk about this at another point, Austin gets wind that the creative would have Coachman going over, and suddenly he's unavailable for that show. So when he becomes unavailable, Batista steps in. Batista has a match with Coachman. Vader's involved. And that's kind of it for his swan song. He did briefly do an appearance where he was taking on with the other WWE legends, Heath Slater, a few years ago, but nothing really of substance. The only other thing that we missed was Scott Hall, and this was something that came up on a message board. Scott Hall had asked about going to Japan when he was trying to renegotiate his WWF deal to try to see if there was a way he can make more money. He approached Vince and said, hey, what can I do? I feel like my income's plateaued. Is there an opportunity for me to do something else? And Vince assured him that no, he was doing everything right. And he countered with, hey, if I'm doing everything right, how can I make more money? Various explanations back and forth. And one of the things that he asked for, if you believe the rumors and innuendo, was that Scott wanted to work in Japan and thought, hey, if I could get some time off here, that would free me up to go have some dates in Japan and offset the income that he felt like he should be making. But he was turned down for that request. And the reason this is topical now and here is that would have happened in late 95 or early 96 at the exact same time that Vader was working out a deal with the WWE that would include some trips to Japan. So what say you, Bruce? You were there. Kind of walk us through what the fundamental difference between yes to Vader and no to Scott Hall would be.
Well, because they were asking for two different things, and Scott Hall was looking to be able to go to Japan and do, 3 to 5 week tours a couple times a year. And Vader was looking to be able to go over and work with our approval. And when I say our approval, we also were approving the opponents that Vader was going to be in the ring with. And they weren't going to be long, week-long, 2-3 week-long tours. They were one-offs, and we had to approve everything. Scott was looking to go over there and do tours, and that was something that where we wouldn't be able to approve his opponents every single night of the tour, and the chance of him getting hurt at some point and not being able to perform for us on the backside was something that he didn't want to do. But being able to approve the opponents for Vader and or send a match to Japan, it was a different situation.
American stars have been rumored over the years to have made 10 to 20, sometimes even in excess of that, $1,000 per week on those Japanese tours. Does that number hold water with you?
Sure, top guys did, without a doubt.
Okay, before we move on, anything you want to add? I feel like I at least needed to mention the Vader Taboo Tuesday thing. Any specific memories about reaching out to Vader in 2005 for that? Was it always planned to be a one-off? Was it let's just see what he looks like and see what we can do from here, and he showed up heavy? Or do you have any recollections as to why that didn't do more?
No, it was strictly as a one-off. It was just kind of a special appearance, a one-time thing, a special attraction type deal. So there was no plans to use him beyond that. And sometimes those things are, you bring people in for a one-off and they blow you away in a good way, then we may go back and say, let's bring them back and do something with them. Obviously, that didn't happen with Vader at that time.
Putting a little bow on the Vader episode before we move on to this week's topic, you, over the weekend, had an opportunity to speak to Stone Cold Steve Austin. And,
I did.
And I actually traded some tweets with Vince Russo. Apparently lots of folks on Twitter started to complain to Vince that we had buried Vince Russo on our Vader episode. I would contend that was not the case. We simply ran through what happened. I asked you to defend some of the craziness. You pointed out that some of the ideas, like, throwing coffee in his face and hitting Goldust bra and some of the silliness was at a time when, Russo had a bigger influence. A lot of the stuff was a home run. Some of the stuff was not. And that's pretty common with all bookers. But I'd like for you to have an opportunity to kind of share whatever you'd like about your conversation with Stone Cold, and then to have any sort of retort or response or explanation of the so-called burial of Vince Russo.
Well, let's address Vince Russo first. And I know that Vince Russo, I guess, had made a comment to you or someone had made a comment to you. We said he was only there 2 years. He said he was there 5 years. My comment of 2 years was the 2 years that Vince spent in creative, specifically writing the television shows with Vince McMahon. And that was just 2 years. He did spend 3 years before that on the magazine and contributing. I happen to like Vince Russo. And I think that Vince Russo is a creative guy, and he's one of those people that gets a bad rap for a lot of the stuff that he says and that he does. And if you want to take that disparagingly, that I said he was only there 2 years, a lot of people aren't even there for 2 months, 2 hours, 2 days, 2 seconds. So he's done a lot more than a lot of other people had. And it's easy to put the blame on him. I'm simply pointing out a fact that he was in creative at that time. A lot of his ideas were there at that time, but also make no mistake about it, as I've said 1,000 times ad nauseum, that at the end of the day, the guy that makes the decision for what goes on TV and what doesn't get on TV is Vincent Kennedy McMahon. That doesn't matter if I'm working with him, Pat Patterson's working with him, Vince Russo's working with him, Dusty Rhodes, Brian Gewirtz, Ed Koskey, whoever the hell is in that position. It's Stephanie McMahon, Triple H, whoever's in that position. Vince McMahon is still going to have the final approval. So that's the way it was then. That's the way it is now. And until he takes his last breath, I dare say that is the way it will always be. So if anybody took what we said is burying Vince Russo, then, wow, get some thicker skin. Because didn't bury Vince Russo simply pointed out that was his stuff, his idea at the time that you asked me about, and got no problem with Vince Russo. Next, got a great call from Stone Cold Steve Austin, who is a very good friend of mine. And Steve and I talked a little bit. We shared podcast stories back and forth, and it was interesting because Steve called his Twitter and his message boards were blowing up over a story that was told on Booker T's Heated Conversations. And Booker T and I go way back, and on Booker T's first night in the WWF, there was a situation where Booker T and Austin had a thing on the outside of the ring, and Booker T picked Austin up, put him on the announce table, and Steve was injured. Steve left early that night, and about 2 o'clock in the morning, I had received a phone call from Vince McMahon, who told me Steve was hurt, and had asked me to call Booker T and suggest that Booker T call Steve and see what he could do for Steve, and even make the suggestion that Booker go and pack Steve's bags and carry his bags to the airport for him and help him out because he was hurt. And Booker's response to that was, "Oh, hell no." Well, Booker told this story. It was also brought up at a roast that I did with Booker T a week or so ago. And I guess Steve got it in his message boards, people asking a question. And I believe somewhere in there we said that either his hand or his neck was injured, and it was actually his back. And Steve was like, "Oh, hell no, that didn't happen." And I said, "No." I said, "The story was about me and Booker. You were kind of a sidebar to the story." And it was funny, but we talked. We had a really good talk talking about his podcast and my podcast and just how the hell everything's going. And it was great to catch up with an old friend.
Absolutely. I can't recommend Stone Cold's podcast enough. Stone Cold is really the king of wrestling podcasts, at least in my worldview. He was the first on the scene. He's still probably got the biggest. I don't think you can argue he's got the biggest. And everybody at this point is trying to just copycat his innovation. So I'm glad you're able to catch up with him. And briefly, I know that other people on our MLW Radio network are not super big fans of Vince Russo, to say the least. I never worked with him, but I have had a couple of just social interactions. He's been nothing but very, very nice and polite and accommodating to me. Just a class human being from my perspective, but I realize that some people who have worked with him have a different interpretation. I can only go based on how folks treat me, and he's been solid to me. So
yeah, and he's misunderstood some things over the years, and takes things personal. I try not to take things personal, and business is business, and I try to treat people and how they treat me. But again, getting back to this podcast and some of the doors that it's opened and relationships, just getting a text as we're doing this from Jason Hervey from the Wonder Years. Jason Hervey is also one of Garett Bischoff's partners, a great guy, and I'm looking forward to catching up with him after we get off of this. But they're coming out of the woodwork, and it's really great to catch up with old friends and have folks wish us well. So I thought that was pretty cool.
And if you would like to, it's worth mentioning, if you would like to book Mr. Prichard for an appearance, he is available. Something to wrestle with at AOL.com is how you would reach him. And if you have any interest on advertising on this program, we would love to have your business and drive some traffic your way. Hundreds of thousands of folks are listening every single week. And we have all the demographics and all the info as to who's listening. So if you're at all interested in that and growing your business, you can actually email Bruce directly. No corporation, no fancy ad sales teams, no board of directors. It's Bruce, and his email is somethingtowrestlewith@AOL.com. So let's get into it, man. We did a lot of housekeeping here, but now it's time. TNA Part 2. And we normally do a poll. We didn't do the traditional poll this week. We did a poll that was a rib. Can I get you to at least admit that something we've ever done was a rib? This was a rib.
I didn't do it.
Okay, I did it, and it was a rib. And we picked TNA.
Damn you, Conrad.
We picked TNA out of our box of gimmicks this week simply because it's a holiday, guys. And I know that it's not everywhere in the world, but it is here in America. And I've got to do some traveling this Thanksgiving. Bruce has got some hosting responsibilities. There's just more on our plate this week than normal. It's a shorter week. The folks who post our show are also doing traveling, so we've got to have a faster deadline. There was no way for us to do this in the traditional manner, but we will get back to normal next week. So stay tuned. At the end of the show, those 4 topics are there. But before we get going on TNA, why did we pick TNA Part 2 here, Bruce? What was our thinking?
Well, we missed a lot, much to our chagrin, and it's funny. Hell, we did more downloads on the TNA show than any other show that we have done, and that's saying a lot. And when all was said and done, man, we started getting bombarded with questions. Well, what about Gut Check? Well, what about this guy? What about that guy? And it was like, wow, how did we miss that? So this is a housekeeping, a complete show, and nothing but housekeeping from our most downloaded show of all time.
It really was our most downloaded show of all time, and man, we play the hits, and TNA was a hit for us, so we're going to go back to what brought us to the dance, so to speak, and I'm excited.
If only they could have as many viewers as we did downloads, and they probably wouldn't be doing so bad, huh?
Well, that's a little mean.
But true.
Okay.
Cruel, but fair.
This is going to be the 3rd time we have taped TNA Part 2. We did the first one when it was fresh. I still think we probably should have kept that one, but through some arm wrestling, I lost that bet. And now we're doing it for the 3rd time. So we've done this many times because we're a little scattered because there's so many little loose ends. So we're going to try to play the hits, and we're going to hit the high spots. It's going to be a little bit of a word association, and we're just going to hit on some of the hot topics. And let's get into a hot one right now. Lots of rumors and innuendo. We teased we were going to talk about it. I got lots and lots of direct messages and text messages and private messages about this. Nobody really wants to talk about it in public, but on the message boards, man, it's there. Let's talk about sex, baby, in TNA. And there's lots of rumors and innuendo, and I kind of want to rapid fire some of this and just have you kind of set the record straight. To be clear, everything I'm about to say is rumors and innuendo. I wasn't there. I don't have any first-hand knowledge of anything. I'm not saying anything happened. I am simply espousing rumors and innuendo to Bruce so he can shit on it or verify it. We've done this forever, but I feel like when we're going to talk about sex, people get a little more sensitive. So here we go. Bob Ryder is a name that has been floated around.
I did not have sex with Bob Ryder.
Okay. Next name. Okay, so Bob Ryder, there's lots of rumors and innuendo. that would link Bob Ryder with certain talent and some adult activities in the early days of TNA, whether it was the Naturals or Chris Harris or Abyss or the Young Bucks. There's a variety of names that are linked there, and I'm not saying anything happened at all, and that all of this isn't complete and total BS. But haters gonna hate, rumors are gonna be rumors. What did you see? What did you witness? What did you have firsthand knowledge of? What can you confirm or deny?
Well, I'll tell you what I witnessed and what I have firsthand knowledge of is that Bob Ryder worked tirelessly, busted his ass for the company, and did a great job at what he did. And, you know, I heard the same rumors, but when you look at it is the total picture, and it's like, oh, well, so-and-so stayed in Bob's room. People share hotel rooms, folks. It's a cost-cutting measure. And when guys are on the road and maybe they don't have the money to be buying a hotel room, they double up. You know, Mick Foley, those guys slept, 3, 4, 5 to a room to save money over the years. And Bob Ryder, I always found Bob Ryder to be nothing but professional, busted his ass, and was always very good to me. So I never witnessed anything of any of the stuff that you said. So
from your worldview, this is all just rumors.
From my view, it's all strictly rumors. Yes. I have no idea if there's any truth to that. You'd have to ask other people involved in that.
When I just mentioned that to you, was that the first time you've heard that before?
No, I've heard the rumors before. I've definitely heard the rumors before, and I addressed it with Bob when I first started there.
What does that conversation sound like?
The conversation sounds like, hey, man, I've heard these rumors about you. I've heard that you will sometimes ask guys for favors for a push. You're not in a position to push anybody. He was the travel man, and he wasn't in a creative position to book and or push anybody anyway. And he said he denied the rumors. He said that wasn't the case. I have to take him at his word. And I never found that to be an issue when I was there. So from my vantage point with Bob, he was straight up, and I didn't have any problem with him in regard to not even anything close like that while I was there.
What do you think causes Bob Ryder to have a negative reputation online? Because it seems like there's a lot of folks who dislike him who haven't probably ever met him.
Well, sure. I mean, there's a lot of people that hate me that have never met me. And okay, I know. Go ahead. You were going to say, well, Bruce, come on, but it's the same thing. It's because of the position he was in. He was in a position of perceived power. Right now, I guess he's in a position of power. I don't really know. But a lot of times it's easy to pick on a guy. You and I have talked about this before, where when TNA, I'm going to use your analogy. I'm going to steal your shit now. So like when Baghdad, the statue of Saddam Hussein is coming down in the background. Bob Ryder standing out in front saying, nothing to see here, folks. It's all good.
Fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that has been the position that Bob Ryder has unfortunately befell with TNA. And, he's standing up for his company just as you and I would. His official title, I believe, is Director of Talent Bookings and Travel. I don't know that for sure, but he certainly has more power than just being a travel guy now. But I wanted to hear that from you because there's a lot of people who believe that the dude's a sleazeball. But you have a different story. You're of the mindset that he's a pretty good, hardworking dude.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Okay, let's talk about who I consider, I guess, to be Mr. TNA himself, Mr. Jeremy Borash. Borash has always been a guy who's, I don't know, people are hot and cold on Borash. What was your experience with Borash? What did you hear before you got there, and what did you find once you were actually there?
Well, I'd heard that Jeremy Borash was a stooge, that Jeremy Borash was, Jeff Jarrett's right-hand guy, and, went and told everything that went on, no matter what it was. And I'd heard not great things about Jeremy Borash before I actually ever met him. Upon meeting him and having the opportunity to work with Jeremy Borash, I found him to be an invaluable person for TNA. The hardest working man in that company. He did everything. He was an announcer. He did helped out on the internet stuff. He ran camera. He produced. He just did, if there was something that needed to be done, no questions asked, Jeremy Borash would do it and do it well. And it took, a little while to get to realize all of that, because I thought, well, why the hell is Jeremy Borash doing that? And I realized that Borash did it because no one else was doing it, and it needed to be done. Jeremy also produced a lot of stuff on his own. He would go out and make things happen. And a hardworking guy, proud to call him a friend, and he's one of those people that will succeed no matter where he is and no matter what he does, because he's a hardworking guy.
Do you think if the wheel ever runs off at TNA, he would have an opportunity to work with WWE?
Jeremy, I think it's sad that he hasn't had that opportunity yet, because he would be a hell of an asset to the WWE. And at the same time, he's such a self-starter and he's such a go-getter that they might want to put the reins on him a little bit, and I think that would stifle him somewhat. He's working with Robert Irvine. He's doing stuff with Howard Stern. He's always out there creating something for himself. So I think he's doing all right where he is and doing what he's doing.
Yeah, I wasn't suggesting that he needs to leave. I just know he's a hard-working dude and he loves the wrestling business. And if this thing ever goes sideways one day, I'd like to think that he had an opportunity.
Well, he definitely would be an asset, without a doubt.
All right, let's talk about another guy who used to be an asset for TNA, Mike Tenay. I want to know, from your perspective, why Mike Tenay is no longer in TNA, what your experience was like working with him, and why we haven't seen him with WWE. It seems like a natural thing. He was a part of WCW and then TNA, and he's been around forever, and now he's not involved with a major wrestling promotion, and that seems a little weird to me. So what did you think of working with Mike Tenay, and why don't you think we're seeing him much these days?
Well, I like Mike Tenay a lot, personally and professionally, and I think Tenay was a talented guy, stand-up guy, responsible. I can't tell you why he's not there anymore. I just assumed that they wanted a younger, different look and feel other than Mike, but not to utilize Mike in a producer's role or a creative role, I think is kind of a miscarriage, because he's great there. He's one of those guys with great attention to detail, very well informed and responsible. It's like one of the good guys. Tenay's one of the good guys. And for him, same thing. I'll say the same thing about him and WWE. I think Tenay, with the network, the WWE network, he would be such an asset to them. They wouldn't know what hit them if Mike Tenay came in there and took that thing over and helped them out with their research and what have you.
Let's talk about Keith Mitchell. He's somebody who we didn't touch on in a previous episode. He's been around the business forever. I think he first came to notoriety out at World Class and then spent a lot of time in WCW. And now, he spent quite a bit of time with TNA. What was your experience like working with Keith?
It was my first time having the pleasure of actually getting to work with Keith Mitchell. Was during my time at TNA. Now, I'd actually tried to hire Keith Mitchell on 2 different occasions over the years away from WCW.
Tell our listeners what Keith did.
Keith Mitchell was a producer, a director, and Keith was the producer of the World Class Championship Wrestling out of Dallas, Texas, for Fritz von Erich back in the day when World Class really exploded. Keith Mitchell was the first guy to utilize the microphones on handheld cameras and open up those mics and hear inside the ring what the referee was saying, what the talent were saying to each other, and not spot calls or anything like that. But it really amplified and enhanced the viewing experience. Keith was so ahead of his time, very creative. And Keith went from World Class. He went to WCW, worked for Turner. Just an unbelievable talent. He eventually moved to Atlanta, makes his home in Atlanta now. And when Jeff started TNA, he utilized Keith Mitchell's experience and expertise to help him out with TNA. And Keith is just an old Texas boy, likes to go hunt, pretty simple. Give him a beer and just let him sit out and smoke his cigar, and he's good to go, man. And beyond talented, but that was one of the really bright spots that you can say, did you enjoy going to work? I loved going to work and working creative and working with the talent. And I throw Keith Mitchell in that talent pool.
Why do you think, considering his long time in the business, he was never a candidate? Not necessarily a candidate. Why did he never wind up with Vince? Was this a Kevin Dunn situation?
We tried, man. I tried to hire him twice.
What kept him from coming?
He was set in Atlanta. He liked Atlanta. Didn't want to move to Connecticut. He was happy where he was. Wasn't about the money. Wasn't about the fame. He was happy where he was.
When you say that, it makes me think of David Sahadi. David Sahadi was well known for producing video packages for the WWE, including the very popular Stone Cold Steve Austin Rock promo to the Limp Bizkit song My Way right before WrestleMania. And the one that I've heard, rumors and innuendo, that Vince loved the most was the old black and white footage from the mid-2000s that had Classy Freddie Blassie doing the voiceover, talking about some of the Hall of Fames like Ernie Ladd and stuff like that. What happened with him departing WWE, and then what was it like working with him in TNA? And specifically, his name comes up when you hear about the situation where WWE was in Orlando filming a commercial for the Royal Rumble, and TNA was involved. And you were there on the WWE side, Sahadi was there on the TNA side, and he had just gotten there. Tell us about working with Sahadi, why he left, and then that specific incident, please.
Well, Sahadi came to us from NBC. He was a promo guy at NBC and came in to produce spots and to help with production at the WWF back in the day. John Filippelli was there at the time. And Sahadi is, in my opinion, a genius when it comes to television production. And Sahadi was the one responsible in a big part for the evolution of Stone Cold Steve Austin, kind of from the $1 Million Champion and the Ringmaster and turning him into Stone Cold with those vignettes of Steve pacing in the yard and the dogs barking and the chain link fence and all that. That was a brainchild of David Sahadi. And he did some really, really great stuff. You talk about the Hall of Fame spot with Fred Blassie and Gorilla Monsoon. Anything that Sahadi could do that could utilize the talent of Classy Freddie Blassie, he would. And I'll tweet out the picture from a party at David Sahadi's house with me and Fred Blassie from years ago when I had black hair. We won't talk about that, but maybe some other time. But Sahadi was just burnt out, and he had been running hard at WWF, and he was burnt out, wanted to take some time, wanted to travel a little bit and just get away from the grind. And he took a leave of absence. He took some time off and didn't come back, and decided that he was just going to take some time, live in the mountains, I believe in Chattanooga. And during this time, Jeff Jarrett contacted him, told him what he was doing, asked him if he could help, had him come in, and he became helping with the opens and some of the production pieces for TNA. And I dare say that he contributed a great deal to the look of those packages for TNA and did a great job. I think where Sahadi kind of I don't think Dave was they ended up moving Dave into a director position where he was directing the live shows, and Dave was not a director. And so people would kind of blame Dave for the live show because he was the director calling shots, but that wasn't his forte.
Right.
He's great in post-production, and he tried, and he did the very best that he could, but, was what it was. And then you talked about when we were down there, we were producing a commercial for the Royal Rumble, and we were in Universal Studios Orlando, and we had a soundstage. And Universal Orlando is also where TNA produced their television show in a separate soundstage down the way. And while we were there, some of the TNA talent came over with cookies and balloons to welcome us, and they were recording it, trying to ambush us and get some of our stars on their TV.
Who were the guys who approached with the cookies and balloons?
It was Abyss, Road Dogg, Jesse James, maybe Kip Sop, and I don't, maybe Conan. I don't remember who else, but I know it was Abyss and Road Dogg for sure. And they came, and John Gaborik, who was with WWF at the time, who's now at TNA, Gaborik and Sahadi got heated, and I think Gaborik called Sahadi and threatened him and was going to beat him up and all this other crap. They shot Rey Mysterio without his mask out at catering. And Rey, unbeknownst to Rey being Rey, one of the nicest guys in the world, walks over to go say hello to the guys, and they were recording him. So it wasn't cool, but it's something that, frankly, we probably would have done being in the same position.
We being WWE. Were you there for this taping?
I was. Yes, I was. I was at Universal Studios. I was inside. I was actually inside the studio when this took place outside. I came out after the big blow up and everything was dispersed. But it wasn't, it was like, okay, great. They came. Get rid of them. Make sure they don't come back, and let's move on.
Does something like that exclude, or, would Vince ever hold that against an Abyss or somebody like that if given an opportunity to have a conversation?
Oh my God, no. I mean, look at it. Road Dogg is in charge of their creative now.
Yeah, I just didn't know, since he had, a track record there. I just wonder, it feels like it is a ballsy move. It's a cool move, but you wonder, hey, is this going to hurt my future employment opportunities if you're in talent? Wouldn't that at least cross your mind? It might, but it doesn't. Yeah, I didn't think so.
If anything, it enhances them because you got balls.
Absolutely. When we mentioned Universal Studios there, do you have any funny Universal Studios stories that you could share with us? Besides Al Snow screaming like a girl when we went in the Halloween Horror Nights, and he's God, my God. I've never heard a grown man scream as much as Al Snow going through a haunted house. It's embarrassing. Absolutely embarrassing. I think one of the funniest things that happened, every year they have the Grinch Who Stole Christmas, and the Grinch, the studio for the Grinch show was right next to the soundstage where we did our show. So all day long, the Grinch and Lucy Liu, or whatever the hell her name is, and all the Who people and everything would walk from their studio across the way to the dressing rooms. And all day long, I would harass the Grinch. And I would tell everybody, hey, that motherfucker right there is going to try and steal Christmas. I know it. That son of a bitch. And keep an eye on him. And at one point during the day, they were walking by, and I took a picture of the Grinch in his makeup coat. And everybody got all upset, said we were back there taking pictures. I said, yeah, I took a picture. What the hell? They're taking pictures of us. We should be able to take pictures of them. They're walking by taking pictures of us. So I unmercifully fucked with the Grinch. And we were there for 3 days. And for 3 days, I would just scream at the Grinch. He's going to steal Christmas. I'll keep an eye on that son of a bitch. Watch that green motherfucker. And finally, on the last day that we were there, the Grinch is walking by, and I look at the Grinch, and I turn, either Pat Kenny or Al Snow, and I said, I know that son of a bitch is going to steal Christmas. And out of nowhere,
the Grinch turns to me and says, "You, Bruce Prichard, yo, I've had my eye on you. I'm gonna," and just cut this incredible Grinch promo on my ass in front of everybody at catering. And I was the only one not in on it. And it was absolutely classic. And, yeah, the Grinch cut a promo on me. That was fun. But Universal was fun, man. We were right next to the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. We could sneak over there and get some butterbeer. And when we used to do those one-night-only pay-per-views, and we would do, like in the afternoon, we would shoot a 3-hour show. Then that night we would do a 3-hour show. I'll make a confession here. I used to go walk over with Bernie, who was our liaison at Universal, and we used to go over and sit in the bar over in Harry Potter World and have a few beers in between shows. So that was nice.
Is that the bar that everybody hung out at? Because I've heard a lot of guys talk about, drinking at the shows down there.
No. This was actually in the Universal Studios amusement park. And in the amusement park, in certain places, they have actual bars.
Got it.
So, yeah. And Bernie was working and I was working, and so we would just kind of hide in a corner and have a couple of cold silver bullets.
Let's get back on track with guys you used to work with. One of the guys that we talked about, or didn't talk about in the last episode, was Mike Tenay's broadcast partner, Taz. There was lots of talk here at the end of Taz's run with TNA that there were financial disputes. I want you to shed some light on that if you can. I know you're not going to give us numbers. I'm not even going to ask, but shed some light on that. And while you're doing it, kind of tell us how that process worked. Did he travel to Orlando and call all the shows there, or did he go there and then have to do post at a later time in Nashville? What does that cycle look like, and how was Taz to work with as a talent here?
Yo, brother, why you fucking with Taz? No, all the above. I loved working with Taz. Taz was easy, and Taz was a pro. He's one of those guys that takes himself seriously, and he came in. He was doing color. He was there when I got there. But Taz, we would do commentary. We would do some commentary there at the arena, at the soundstage. And sometimes we would leave commentary blank, and they would come in and do commentary back in Nashville every week to try and keep it as current as you possibly could. But Taz was easy, and he did his work, showed up on time. You didn't have to worry about him, and I really didn't have a problem with him. If you just shot straight with him, he shot straight with you. You always knew where he was coming from. He had contractual issues, it seemed like every year. And I'll try to give you the example. I'll ask you just two simple questions. If you're paid bi-monthly in 1 year, how many times will you be paid?
Bi-monthly would be 24.
If you were paid every other week in 1 year, how many times would you be paid?
26.
So if your contract calls for you to be paid bi-monthly and the company pays you that bi-monthly amount weekly or bi-weekly.
Yeah, you get paid an extra month's worth of income each year.
Correct. So, let's just hypothetically say if that were to happen and they would catch it a year and a half, 2 years later, after the fact, they would come back and say, oh, we overpaid people. And they would want the talent to pay that money back. Well, coming from a talent perspective and coming from the talent world, where oftentimes, at least in the WWE, and I dare say even with Bill Watts and Paul Bosch, there were times you got bonuses. Mm-hmm. So you would get your salary pay, but you also got bonuses. Mm-hmm. So if you make more money than what you were contractually obligated to make, you assume or you figure, well, hell, it's a bonus.
I did a good job. Yeah.
It's an understanding. Well, Panda in Dallas, they didn't understand that. So there were issues like that with Taz, but it was always Panda's fuck up.
I see.
And every single time Taz was in the right. And it was silly, stupid shit that just didn't have to be. And I do not know, have never talked to Taz about it. He left after I left, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was over a silly, stupid issue like that.
Another guy that you worked with there at TNA that you had worked with before, you mentioned a moment ago, was Al Snow. Al was one of the agents there. Who were the rest of the agents? And can you kind of break down what the daily life of an agent would have been for TNA?
Well, there was Al Snow, there was D'Lo Brown, there was Pat Kenny. Bully Ray was an agent from time to time, would help us out on TV tapings. Abyss would even help us out at TV tapings and maybe agent a match or two if we needed him to, or help out. The agents would come, they'd be a part of our television production meeting early in the day, and they would work on the matches themselves with the talent. They would get with the talent, come up with finishes, and come up with the layout of the match and convey that to the talent during the day. And then they would work with the production truck to make sure that they knew everything that was going to happen throughout the night. Every one of those guys I thoroughly enjoyed working with, because it was they would probably tell you different when I say it was a low pressure job. Because I might have been a little intense at times. Some people say I would yell and scream. That's just simply not true. I was just passionate about things at times. But for the most part, we had a blast. I really enjoyed working with those guys because nobody had an ego. Everybody was open to ideas, and it was a free form freestyle, exchange of ideas.
What were the Harris brothers doing when you were there? They're a name we see associated a lot with TNA now, but back when you were there, going all the way back to your WWE days, they were the Disciples of Apocalypse, the DOA. And before that, they had another gimmick and another gimmick. I mean, they've been around the wrestling business for a long, long time. And they started as talent with TNA as well, but now they've worked themselves into a backstage role. What role did they have when you were there?
They weren't there when I was there.
Okay.
They were never there for one day while I was there. But Ron and Don, man, I've known them for years. Always got along with them. Love them. Great sense of humor. I always found them to be great guys.
I want to talk about another guy who I don't think was there when you were there yet. You mentioned him a minute ago about the Royal Rumble shoot with Sahadi. Big is his nickname. People probably remember him from the original Tough Enough. John Gaborik. Did I say his name right?
Yeah, John Gaborik, yeah.
So Gaborik, he is somebody who has, had a rise, I guess, in TNA. I think he's like an executive vice president of talent relations now, or something like that. So he's in a pretty prominent role. Kind of carry us through, Big in the WWE, his departure there, and what your experience was like working with him.
Well, Big was one of Kevin Dunn's best friends, and he was brought in the WWE to be the guy that lives with the talent for the first Tough Enough show and be the liaison producer between MTV and the WWF for the Tough Enough shows. And he continued that role in subsequent Tough Enough seasons. But I don't know, maybe he did, but I don't know that he did, if he had any previous production experience, but it was somebody that Kevin Dunn trusted and put him in that position. And later years in WWF, he was in charge of getting the production crews and the locations for our off-site vignettes, special shoots, and commercials and things like that. I wasn't there when he started at TNA. He started right when I was leaving, so I didn't really have any interaction other than a phone call or two with him at TNA.
And you don't know what his background is?
I think he had a furniture store and a cigar store in Baltimore.
And that's maybe how.
Beyond that, I really don't know.
Okay. A lot of people blame him for some of the quote unquote fall of TNA. just miscues one way or another, for right, fairly or not. You know, a lot of people point the finger to him for some of their challenges. Did you know of any sort of shenanigans to happen with Garett when he was in WWE?
No, I don't know. I mean,
okay, well, let me just say it. The rumors and innuendo are that he would, you know, kind of say one thing and do another, and that upset some of the talent, but it also upset some management and some of the other partners, where he would misrepresent things to different people, including talent. Some of those guys on their way out credit him as being a reason they leave. And then maybe it's sour grapes, but you start.
Oh, are you talking about TNA or WWF?
Well, I'm talking about TNA, and I know you weren't there, but I'm saying as a basis, was any of that evident? I mean, like, I don't know why he left WWE, but I'm saying, supposedly he's politicking in TNA and making some wrong calls. And one of the rumors and innuendo are that he has a little bit of a casting couch for the TNA knockouts. And I'm not saying that's happened. That's all message board bullshit as far as I know. But did you know of any sort of saying one thing and doing another, or playing the political game, or having some leverage, or having some inappropriate relationships with female talent, or anything like that with him in WWE?
Well, I think that the rap on him in WWE was that he was Kevin Dunn's best friend, and that's the only reason he was there. That was the rap on him at WWE. As far as TNA, I've heard after the fact, I've heard the same rumor and innuendo about him, but I don't know if any of that's true. It comes along with the position. And no matter what, I've heard some horrible things about things that he's allegedly said and done there. But again, it's simply rumor and innuendo. I didn't experience it, so it's tough to comment on it, because no, I never experienced anything like that firsthand with him. I didn't have that much interaction with him. When I interacted with him at WWE, it was simply I would come in and go do a shoot, and he was the guy that had hired the crew and or got the place for me.
Dale Oliver is the music director for TNA, and he worked closely with Surge, and that's Dixie's husband. Do you have any interesting stories or familiar stories about working with Dale?
No, but Dale was a trip, man. Dale was a lot of fun. He's one of those guys that we would always hang out with afterwards. And well, hang on, let me rephrase that, because I didn't hang out a lot at TNA. I tried to keep to myself, and I would usually just go out with the creative guys, or Al Snow and Pat Kenny. But on occasion, and when I'd be in Nashville from time to time, Dale was one of those guys that was fun to sit and have a beer with and chat, because he's played with everybody. He's a guitar player, he's a music producer, very talented guy. And if you remember the deal where Garett Bischoff was playing guitar, opened up a TNA show, that was Dale Oliver that was actually playing it.
Oh, okay.
So when they had the close-up shots, and Eric plays a little bit, so he was able to fake his way through it for the live arena shot. But when the music actually being played in those tight shots, that was Dale.
What about Surge when it comes to music? What's your favorite theme music that Surge has ever put together?
Trouble, trouble, trouble. Trouble, trouble, trouble. Trouble, trouble, trouble. Trouble, trouble, trouble.
Got to find a way to work that into every TNA show. What about Bill Banks?
Bill Banks. Wow.
It's a deep cut right there. Bill Banks was with WCW back in the day, and then eventually works with TNA as well. He did a lot of work on the old WCW magazine, and then when he goes to work with TNA, he has a variety of roles. I wanted to know, from your perspective, what he contributed to TNA.
Bill Banks, in my opinion, contributed nothing to TNA. Bill Banks originally worked at the WWF on WWF.com, and he was on the website, and he worked with Vince Russo. And when Vince Russo left to go to WCW, Bill Banks left and went to work with WCW with Russo. And then from there went to TNA. Bill is I dare say that if left to Bill's own devices, that the TNA website would look exactly like the WWF website did in 1998. I hadn't seen it was a constant battle these talents were released from the company. Please take them off the website. 2 weeks later, Bill, I asked you 2 weeks ago, please take these off of the website. They are no longer with the company. 3 weeks later, 4 weeks later, 5 weeks later. He just, I don't know what it was with him. He would hide in his office with the door shut and the lights off and would become very defensive if you ever questioned him about anything, but was very opinionated and would attack everybody else in the company for not working and tell everybody how hard he worked. When we would ask for change, I would just ask for simple things. Keep the site updated. Don't have tonight on Impact about a show that's 2 weeks old, especially when we were taped. It's like, let's plug some of this shit. Let's tease. Let's get people interested in the show. Let's be ahead of the game and update the website as the live show is going on. Oh no, that's too difficult to do. I would need a whole staff. You've had the show for a week. You can build stuff ahead of time and be ready to post it. Just keep it up to date so that people who are watching the show live can go to our website and get updated. Let's have something beyond the show. Let's do some backstage stuff. Let's do some extra things that you can't get on TV. Yeah, I don't mean to be mean, but he's horrible.
I did not expect that.
Absolutely horrible. Sorry, Bill, but you're horrible.
That's why you listen to Something to Wrestle With right there, kids. Every now and again, I hit a name that I had no idea would get that type of reaction.
And that's why we don't talk about this, folks, before we go on the air. I have no idea what's coming at me, and neither does he.
Bill Banks, on his LinkedIn profile, says that he was the magazine writer and editor from 95 to 99 for the WWF magazine, and that he kind of oversaw all of that. And he also says in 98 and 99, he was a member of the creative team for Monday Night Raw, broadcast on the USA Network, and a weekly 2-hour SmackDown broadcast, and monthly 3-hour pay-per-views such as WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Royal Rumble, etc. So he was on the creative writing team, 98 and 99. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it would be interesting if you were to ask Vince McMahon about Bill Banks. Go ahead, ask Vince McMahon about Bill Banks.
So, Mr. McMahon, I've got Bill Banks on the line for you. Apparently, down there in Nashville, things ain't looking so good, and he wanted to talk to you about rejoining the creative team here in the WWE, Mr. McMahon.
Who?
Bill Banks. He ran the magazine from 95 to 99, and he's Russo's buddy.
What magazine, pal? Pronouns. God damn it.
Your magazine, sir, the WWF magazine. He was buddies with Russo. He ran the WCW website too for Turner and oversaw a staff of 10 employees for daily updates, including news, photos, graphics, television, and live event promotion.
What the fuck are you talking about? Rambling on. I've never heard of this. Jack off.
Well, he wrote for WWE. He wrote SmackDown. He wrote Raw. He wrote Wrestle. I'm reading it right off his LinkedIn here, Mr. McMahon. He wrote SummerSlam. He wrote Royal Rumble. Then he went to WCW and he wrote there. He wrote Nitro and he wrote Thunder. And now he's in Nashville, and of course down there he's had an opportunity to write for Pop TV and Destination America and Spike TV and
What the fuck is Pop TV?
Well, you know, it's where they're doing that TNA show now, where the Hardy Boys are deleting everybody.
God damn it, pal! Get me a coffee.
Yes, sir. How do you like your coffee?
Like I like my women, hot and wet.
And paid for. Thank you, Mr. McMahon. So, where does this hate for Bill Banks come from, dude? I never saw this.
I don't hate him. I mean,
you did say, "Hey, sorry, Bill, but you're horrible." So, I mean, you did say
I'm
sorry.
Just saying he was horrible. Yeah. He was. I think he was the associate editor, which means that he used to like make copies and shit like that. And for Russo, that's basically what he was. He was kind of like a writer's assistant to Russo.
I've met Bill a couple of times, and he's always cool to me. So I don't know Bill in this negative way you do, but he's been there, according to his LinkedIn, since April of 2003, and he says he's done everything there, from being a producer to handling the website and the social media, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all that stuff. And also
what a glowing recommendation that is. Then look at their shit. You know, one of the only times I've ever seen Dixie Carter get pissed, and I mean pissed, and go off on someone was at Bill Banks in a meeting.
How so? Are you gonna tell us a story?
Goddamn, I'm trying to forget. I'm trying to remember who the hell the girl was. It was one of the knockouts, and Bill was making fun of the way she looked. And Dixie and he was doing it all under his breath and making little, snide remarks and laughing to himself and just being a little dick. And Dixie went off on him.
What'd she say? What'd she say?
No, just stop with your remarks. You don't have a clue, and I'm sick of your smart ass comments, and you don't contribute anything positively to any of these meetings. All you do is knock everybody, that type of shit.
Wow.
Yeah, and for Dixie, dude, that was snug.
Dude, it sounds like that might be the only story I've ever heard like that about Dixie.
Yeah, well, it's one of the only ones I really remember, her going off on someone, and she did it in public. I mean, she did it at a big meeting.
Well, I did not expect that with our Bill Banks conversation today.
From my first day on the job, it was, can we get someone to overhaul the website till the very last day they left? Was, God, we need someone to do the website. Everyone they brought in and talked to, of course, I guess they didn't like because they had ideas. I don't know.
Or they wanted to be paid. One of those.
Oh, damn.
What?
What happens?
I'm not saying that to be ugly. Let's move along, and let's talk about something else that got moved along. And that was the gut check. We somehow missed this on our first TNA show, and this was really, really, really popular with our Twitter fans. I don't know how we missed it, but we still covered 3 hours and managed to miss it. Gut check had a couple of different incarnations, but it really got off the ground when you were there, and you guys turned it into a television segment. And it's famous for, in the very first one, Alex Silva was the contestant. He had a match against Robbie E. And then they threw it to a vote with Bruce Prichard, Al Snow, and Ric Flair. And supposedly the rumors and innuendo would lead you to believe that everybody knew what the answers were going to be. Like, these guys say yes and these guys say no. But Flair goes off script and changes his mind and says yes. And that changes the whole outcome of the thing. So the guy wasn't getting a contract, but now because Flair just went into business for himself, now he is signed, and he doesn't even have a work visa to work here. What's true, what's false, and what really happened?
Well, as far as gut check, it was simply an idea to be able to expose some new talent, and we were doing gut check on the road. where we would get indie guys and people that wanted to audition for a spot on the roster to come to the shows and work out with the agents and work out with some of the talent. We were looking for new segments for the television shows. Spike wanted something new. Dixie wanted something new. We wanted something new. And American Idol was hot. And we thought, well, what if we actually had live auditions on the show? And we had people, guys come out, they wrestle a match, and then the next week we would critique that match and we would talk amongst ourselves. We had 3 different judges that would then decide whether or not this guy would get a contract. Originally, the 3 judges were going to be Ric Flair, Earl Hebner, and I think Al Snow. They had them talking over the match at first in an insert, and it just didn't work. We scrapped the idea. It didn't work. And
did that ever make air?
No, it did not.
Okay.
It was taped. We taped it to try it out and do a dry run, see if there was something there. Dixie really wanted me to be on air. I didn't want to be on air. Eric made a big push.
Why didn't you want to be on air?
I'm not comfortable being myself on air. I know that's crazy. I hear this show, Something to Wrestle with Bruce Prichard. But I was much more comfortable being a character. I like being a character. Plus, I didn't want to take up TV time. We had talent that needed to be on TV and needed that time. Why do you want to look at an old fart like me? And she felt it was real. Eric made a push for it, talked me into it, and I decided, okay, I'll do it. And so it was me, Flair, and Al Snow. I knew what the other 2 judges were going to vote, and I would essentially determine the order. I'd let Jeremy Borash know the order to ask which judge at what time, and then I would usually I would have the deciding vote how I wanted it to play out, whether it was me doing it or one of them. With Alex Silva, he came in, the vote was no. But right before the 3rd and final vote, we gave the guys an opportunity to cut a promo to possibly sway the last judge's decision. Well, Flair had already voted, and Flair voted no. He was the first one to vote. Al Snow voted yes. So I'm the deciding vote. Alex Silva cuts his promo. Flair grabs the microphone and says, I changed my mind. I vote yes. And the kid's in. And he's hired. And we're on live TV. And it was crazy because the kid didn't have a visa. Couldn't work in the States. We had him on a temporary, 1 or 2 off deal appearances to be able to do the gut check thing, but he didn't have a visa. So now we had to start working on a visa. Didn't work out. He wasn't that good. And never should have got the contract in the first place. But gut check was simply a vehicle to get new talent exposed, bring some new, fresh talent in, and a different way to introduce them.
And the thing that most people talk about is contestant number 2, which is when Joey Ryan in May of 2012 had a match with Austin Aries. They take it to a vote, and this time Taz has replaced Ric Flair. It's a no from Bruce Prichard, it's a yes from Al Snow, and it's a no from Taz. What happened from there? What was a work? What was a shoot? And when did it become a worked shoot, if it did?
Well, that's one of those deals where, notice how I got that in?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Where we knew what we were going to do, and I had said no, Al had said yes. Funny how that worked, because we really usually did disagree. It was time for Joey to cut his promo, and Joey cut a great promo on me and on Taz. Well, Taz, being the pro that he is, he stuck to the script. He didn't go off script, and he said no. But Taz was pissed because the kid cut a hell of a personal promo on me and on Taz. Well, as this is taking place and we get out of the ring, and I go back and they've got a camera in Joey's face, and I tell him I'm listening to this, and I'm thinking, oh my God, this guy's great. I send Al Snow I said, go in there, grab him, and throw him out. Make sure that the camera, is still on you and stuff. Now, nobody knows. I mean, everybody assumes it's work, but then it turned into a shoot, but it truly was a shoot. and Joey shot himself into a work, I guess you could say. But Joey was working as well. I mean, he was just cutting promos, getting himself over, which I told him to do. So Al gets Joey outside. I said, bring him over to my trailer. We met in between the trailers, and Eric comes running over. I said, man, that was great. I encouraged Joey to continue his tirade. I said, man, I want you to leave here, but I want you to get on YouTube, and I want you to get on Twitter, and I want you to lambaste the shit out of us. We don't know what the hell we're doing, chicken shit operation, blah, blah, blah. And we signed him. I mean, I had a contract drawn up for him right then, sent it to him the next couple days. And told Taz, I said, hey, here's the deal. And Taz thought we had worked him, which we hadn't. It was just Joey's promo, and it was a great one. And I said, Joey's going to do this, and he's going to cut promos on us and talk about what pieces of shit we are, and I want to build this thing up. Well, Joey got personal, Taz got personal, and then we realized that, well, we've kind of worked ourselves into a corner because there's no payoff with Taz. Taz can't wrestle. He's got a neck issue, and physically he couldn't get back in the ring. So we had to switch it to kind of put the heat on Al Snow. And that was the story of Joey Ryan. But that was one of those situations that we were live. It worked out. Joey cut a hell of a promo. Instead of hiring him right there, we threw him the hell out and made a story out of it to bring him back. And I enjoyed Joey's work at that time.
Christian York, towards the end of this idea, gets an opportunity in November of 2012 from the North Carolina circuit, friends with the Hardys and Shannon Moore and Shane Helms and all that. Why do you think he didn't get a bigger opportunity there?
He did. I think that Christian just was kind of reminiscent of that old Southern wrestler, like Vince McMahon would say. And it just kind of was a tired gimmick, a tired look. And there wasn't a whole lot special about Christian. I thought his work was good. I liked the hell out of him, but the audience didn't really seem to care.
When did Sam Shaw start doing the Dexter ripoff? Was that after you were gone?
Yeah, that was after I was gone.
What about Wes Briscoe? He did the very last gut check, or one of the last ones in 2012 when you were there, against Garett Bischoff. Two guys who were the sons of guys you were very good friends with their dads. Your thoughts on those two as performers?
Well, it was an opportunity to bring Wes in, and Jerry Briscoe and I are very good friends. And it was an opportunity to put Wes out there, impress or not impress. And I thought Wes did a hell of a job, and I like Wes. And I felt that he had a future in this business, still think he has a future in the business. And it was a different way to introduce somebody. If he impressed us and was good, he got a hell of a reaction. The match wasn't that great, but I saw something in him, and I saw something that I felt that we could have used. And we had the Aces and Eights story happening at the time, so it was a way to integrate kind of a devil knot secret agent in the Aces and Eights and utilize Wes. So, that's the story of Wes Briscoe. It was just another way to introduce talent.
Why don't you think Wes got a bigger opportunity with WWE? I know he was signed for a while and he was in developmental, but he never got a chance to shine on the big show. What do you think that is?
Probably his mic skills. He was young, hadn't really developed a good promo at the time, and I wasn't there, so I don't really know what happened, because Wes was definitely on the radar. Wes was one of those guys that we had been looking at and wanted to do something with, just off of his pedigree alone. And great look, great kid, and it was a shame. I don't know exactly what the hell happened there, but if I were to say anything, it would probably be the only thing that would have been holding him back at that young age was probably his mic skills.
What about your other good friend, Eric Bischoff, and his son, Garett Bischoff? Is this nepotism for him to have an opportunity here? What did you think about working with Garett Bischoff and him as a performer?
Well, I thought that Garett personally, first of all, great guy, stand-up guy, and really hardworking. And Garett wanted to be a wrestler. Garett, that was his dream. And it probably was a case of nepotism with Eric, bringing his son in and putting him in that position. Garett wasn't ready for it. And it was viewed, it's a double-edged sword, especially if you're a second-generation guy. And especially if you're a second-generation talent with your last name being Bischoff. Bischoff wasn't the most popular guy backstage, wasn't the most popular guy in front of the camera. So fans didn't like him, guys backstage didn't like him and felt that he was taking the spot from them. But Garett worked his ass off, and he was new, he was fresh. And it was really interesting when we would do focus groups and get feedback from people. One of the guys that they would look at and say, wow, without knowing who the hell he is, they like Garett because he was a good looking young guy with a great body. And they say, hey, I'd like to know more about this guy. Don't know who he is, but good looking kid. So there was that, but yeah, it was probably nepotism as well. And, guilty.
It's unfortunate because whether these guys are talented or not doesn't ever really matter because the conversation always starts about, oh, well, you know who his dad is.
Right. And that was the same thing with Briscoe because they knew Jerry and I were friends.
Oh, and that happens, even now with Charlotte in the WWE. I mean, no matter how long she's been there or how good her matches are or how hard she works. Oh, well, it's Rick's daughter. So, Triple H this or that. So kind of an unfortunate deal for them. Since we're talking about young talent, OVW had a relationship with TNA post WWE. So after years of being the feeder system for WWE, they become a little bit of one for OVW. Is there anything interesting to cover there, or is that something we should just gloss over?
No, it was just a natural fit. And Danny Davis and I had been friends for years. They ended their relationship with WWE when WWE opened up Florida and the Performance Center down there. It was just a natural transition to be able to take the guy that helped train Brock Lesnar, Randy Orton, John Cena, and a host of others and use that as a feeder and developmental system for TNA.
Talking a little bit about, guys who used to be in the WWE have a relationship there. Dave Lagana is a name that we're familiar with from his time with WWE. He leaves there. He comes to TNA. And very recently, with all of the shakeup that TNA has had, if you believe the rumors and innuendo, there were folks who were on Team Dixie, and then there were folks who were on Team Billy, and apparently Lagana bet on the wrong horse. What was your experience like working with Lagana? Do you have any funny or interesting stories you can share? I know you're in touch now. Can you update us as to his current situation?
Well, knew Dave since Dave was in the WWE. We worked together on SmackDown. Dave was a writer at WWE, and he worked on SmackDown. He worked on ECW. From there, he went to ROH, and then came to TNA via Ring Ka King, which was a television show that they produced for India that only lasted one season that they thought was going to be the savior for TNA for a little while. But Dave, without a place to go, and us always looking for help on the creative end of things, we brought Dave into the fold on creative in TNA and helped us write stuff. And I dare say that he did a good job there. He's one of those people that will work tirelessly as well and always get the job done. But he helped us produce, he helped us create and write, and was an asset. But as far as what's happening now, he's just looking for new avenues and something else to do. And towards the end of his stay there, he kind of got the feeling that he really wasn't wanted or welcomed anyway. So it's time to move on.
The rumors and innuendo are that towards the end, it's not over, but towards the end of this whole Billy Dixie thing, a lot of the folks who were on Team Billy didn't even go into the office. Even if they had previously been going to the office, they were just working from home after that. It was kind of a house divided. True or false?
True. That's what I'd heard, that they kind of didn't feel welcomed in the office, but were still doing their jobs and still still riding the televisions and doing their tasks. Maybe they didn't have room for them at the new warehouse office that they had. I don't know.
Have you seen the warehouse office?
I have not.
Tell us about the Cummins Station office.
Cummins Station they were nice offices. They had several, I think they were on the third floor there, third or fourth floor. I don't even remember. But they were split level offices. They were very nice. And then they had the studio down in the basement, the first floor. And it was a nice little setup.
One of the things that people enjoy most on this show are your impressions, and you've given us a fair share of impressions of guys who were writing on the WWE team. We've heard your Michael Hayes doot 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 and your script, and we've heard Pat Patterson, and we've heard Jim Cornette. I mean, it goes on. Jerry Jarrett. We've gone on and on and on. Do you have a Dave Lagana impression?
Well, Conrad, I don't really always do impressions, but sometimes, I think if you have ever watched Friends, well, it doesn't matter. So no, that's about it. And as I'm doing that, I'm hearing it, and people are going to sit there and think, is Lagana Indian?
I thought the same thing. I'm like, wow. I don't remember that. What about a Vince Russo? Do you have a Vince Russo?
Bro. Yo, bro. Hey, yo, bro. What, bro? Bro. Well, that's all I got. Fucking Yankee. I knocked Vince Russo, but you fucking Yankees will probably think that's a compliment. It's kind of like, see, here's the thing about Russo. Russo always, and Vince, they always thought it was a knock to call me and anybody from the South a redneck. But I took that as a compliment. I like being called a redneck. Well, they like being called Yankees. I don't get it. Whatever.
Here's a guy you can do an impression on that we didn't cover in the last one. I don't know if you have an impression here, but Don West. Don West is a notable character. He was around for a lot of the beginning, early years of TNA. He did commentary, and before that, he did a lot of fun stuff with hawking baseball cards on TV, and he kind of became the go-to pitchman for all TNA merchandise. You've kind of told me before about some of the conversations about, money per head on the house shows, and, that there was such a big push for the merchandise sales. Can you kind of carry us through that whole situation in the office, and then tell us about your time spent working with Don West?
Well, Don West was probably single-handedly responsible for the house shows being profitable in many regards because of the way that he drove merchandise sales. I had a philosophical difference in the way that merchandise was sold and hawked, I guess more importantly, at house shows, because it was just an endless barrage. You would walk into the building if the doors opened up at 6:30, and you would be hit with, all right, folks, hey, everybody here tonight, we've got the Dudley Boys over at the merchandise table. If you go over there right now, you can get an autograph of them. Velvet Sky up in the northeast corner right now. She's taking pictures, guys. You can get in line right up there and get an autograph of Velvet Sky. Don't forget Abyss at ringside down here. Come on down and say hello to Abyss, get his autograph. And then later on, we're going to be doing backstage passes. If you didn't get a backstage pass earlier today, we're going to be doing backstage passes in the middle of the intermission, and you're going to be able to go backstage. That's right, backstage, and meet all the stars of TNA Wrestling. And then after the show, we're going to have Jeff Jarrett come out here. Jeff Jarrett's going to be out here, going to take pictures of the ring, but don't forget Jeff Hardy's here. And Jeff Hardy, if you'd like to get a picture with Jeff Hardy and Matt Hardy, they're going to be available out at the concession stand right after Velvet Sky leaves the northeast corner. And you heard that shit nonstop until the show started. And it was annoying. Now, if you know Don West, and you get to work with Don West is brilliant. He really is. I mean, brilliant guy. He's done very, very well. And again, hey, man, it worked. They sold more merchandise. They made more merchandise than they did at the gate. That's just a cold, hard fact.
Wait, really?
And, yes. And what?
I don't know. That just blows me away. Let's run through what you're saying there. WWE, for instance, on just freestyle some numbers here from memory. If they sold, if they had a $80,000 gate So ticket sales totaled $80,000. What would the merch take be that night on an $80,000 house?
Usually, probably about $15 a head.
What was it at TNA?
About 24 or more.
Wow. Percentage-wise, that's a huge difference.
But you got to understand. Look at where WWE is drawing 8,000, or let's just say, to put it in comparison, the exact comparisons that I used to get from their financial wizards there, that WWE only drew 5,000, and we're drawing 500. That's not bad. So if you are only drawing 500 people to live events, those are 500 diehard fans that are really into your product. So they were willing to spend more money on the ancillary stuff. And they were going to spend more money to go back and get their picture taken with Velvet Sky and wait in line to get a Jeff Hardy autograph and get a picture with him. And it's just the way it was. But I felt that it diminished the talent to have them that accessible to the audience all the time.
Right.
It didn't, they weren't special anymore. And that was my bitch. It was just simply one of presentation. And when you're hawking every second, it is a audience member, you just get tired. And Don would wear him out. But again, you can't argue with success, man. He did well. And a great guy. I mean, really a great guy. And he had an opportunity to go, and I think he's a partner in a hockey team in the Northwest somewhere.
Yeah. And
doing real well. And couldn't happen to a nicer guy. And I'm sure that if Don West is in charge of selling something, it's getting sold. Come hell or high water, that shit is going to get sold.
He's greatest salesman in wrestling, you think?
Yes.
Well, there you go. There's something nice after some names.
No, I really and truly. Now, everything I have to say about Don is nice. I just pointed out the difference of opinion in presentation. I didn't care for his presentation in live events and in the hawking and stuff all the time. It's just personal preference.
We talked briefly about Kurt Angle in the first episode, but I don't know that we got into who made contact with him first, who had a relationship with him, and how did that initial conversation and then signing, who was the liaison to get Kurt Angle in?
I don't know. I was at WWF when Kurt went to TNA, but I'm pretty sure it was Jeff.
Did you get any sort of feedback from the WWE before you took the TNA gig? We didn't talk about that before.
What do you mean?
Okay, so you've been out of the company for a little bit, and now you're going to take a job with TNA. Do you smarten anybody up? Do you send a text message? Do you have a phone call? Does the news break on the internet and someone texts you? Do you get a call? When do you communicate with Vince or anyone about you working somewhere other than WWE now?
Well, I didn't have any communication with them prior to me going to work there. And probably a month or two after I went to work there, I saw Vince in Houston.
Just at an airport?
WWE had an event.
Okay, you went.
And we met after the show, and just it was the first time that we had seen each other and or spoke since I had left in 2008.
And that was what year?
That would have been 2000, and I want to say it was at the end of 2010, maybe the beginning of 2011.
So after working with this guy, like personally, directly, for over 20 years, you didn't talk to him for roughly 2 years and then just saw him after the show?
That'd be correct.
Did he ask you to come to the show, or did you ask to see him after?
I probably asked to see him. It was one of those deals where I reached out just to say hello, and they were in town, and let's have a drink.
And where'd you meet him? Hotel bar?
Met him at the hotel.
No communication with any of the other comrades that you're friends with, dude doesn't text you when he finds out that you got a gig at TNA, or no communication at all?
No, actually, Michael did. Several of the writers did. Congratulated me and wished me well.
I'm curious. There's a gap between your employment with WWE and TNA. I know you did some other stuff. Was there interest in you going to TNA from their side right away, and you kept your distance just in case? Or what was the angle there?
Legally, I couldn't do anything for a period of time.
Okay.
But Jeff Jarrett and I spoke within days of my release.
And then when the timing was right, based on some other things, and that legal clause had passed, there was an opportunity, and let's go for it.
Correct.
There's rumors and innuendo that, and lots of people stir this up online, that Vince Russo has said you would be in Dixie's ear looking for his job. Correct that or don't?
Well, no, it's 100% false. And it's interesting because when I was put in the position of Russo having to answer to me and having to have the scripts and everything approved by me, the day that everybody found out, I had flown in and I was in Tennessee, in Nashville, and Garett Bischoff was also there, which was unusual. But Russo was there. Again, Russo lived in Colorado, so all three of the outsiders were in town at the same time. And they had a meeting, and I believe it was with Vince Russo first, and then Garett Bischoff, and then me. So Russo got the news of what they wanted to do before I did. Then Garett got it, and then they called me in and said, hey, here's what we would like to do. Well, I'm in a position where, frankly, I needed a job. And I was happy with the job that I had, but now they're telling me they would like for me to take on some new responsibilities. There was more money involved, more responsibility, and I wasn't going to turn it down. So I accepted the position. But there was in absolutely no way, zero, zilch, none. Did I lobby for the position? Did I go in and whisper in Dixie's ear and tell her that I wanted to do this in any way, shape, or form? They came to me, and they came to me after they went to Russo and Garett. Okay. So that's just the way it really went down.
Let's clear up some other stuff. Claire Lynch was briefly touched on in our previous episode, where we said that maybe this is where AJ showed some of his acting chops that ultimately helped WWE think, hey, maybe this guy can do our kind of stuff. The rumors and innuendo would lead you to believe that what we saw on television and the way that whole angle wound up is not what the original plan was. Kind of catch everybody up briefly on what the original plan was, and then we'll get to some more stuff.
Well, the original plan was to use Dixie in that and to build up more that AJ was having an affair with Dixie and a lurid affair, but that kind of got blown out of the water when the Carters had to face people at their country club. And this is not an analogy, I'm not making anything up. This is just shoot what happened. People at the club were questioning the Carters about, what's this I hear about your daughter and your sister being a whore and sleeping with this guy AJ Styles, and they didn't like that. So we had to change course and introduce Claire Lynch, and just went in a different direction. And I'm ashamed to say this, but I kind of lost interest after it and let Dave Lagana and Matt Conway and them have fun with it and do what they wanted to do, because it's one of those deals where, okay, folks, if you're taking a drink, that was a cue, where I had laid it out ahead of time, exactly what we wanted to do. Everybody's on board, and then you get into it and you do it, and they can't take the heat. So fuck it.
You mentioned him a few times, Matt Conway. Tell everybody who that is and what he does.
Matt Conway was a writer with Vince Russo, and Matt was a writer while I was there. I enjoyed working with Matt. Matt's a creative kid. He was a disciple of Andy Barton, Andy was vice president in charge of event operations and things like that. And Dixie took a liking to Matt. And when I got there, it was Matt and Vince Russo that were writing the TV. When Russo left, I kept Matt on, and he was a creative guy, always had good ideas, and busted his ass to get the product done.
The six-sided ring, who liked it, who hated it? What did you think about it?
Dixie liked it. Jeff liked it. I think they were the only ones for the most part. It wasn't there when I got there. We had the traditional four-sided ring by the time I got there. But the feedback that I got from the talent, because there would be times that Dixie would come back and say, gosh, can we go back to the six-sided ring and be different than WWE? I would get feedback from talent, and most of them, if they had their choice, preferred the four-sided ring. Because the six-sided ring, the construction of it, it was an unforgiving ring, not a bump-friendly ring.
A lot more steel underneath.
Yes, and it just didn't have as much give. So the guys preferred the four-sided ring, and I had no desire to bring the six-sided monstrosity back.
Toby Keith, what's real and what's rumor?
Don't know. I wasn't there. I mean, I heard rumblings after I left that Toby had a deal, and everyone had agreed to a deal for him to buy the company. And when he got to the table to actually do it, they started putting conditions like, well, Dixie has to stay involved and be president, be on TV, and they weren't looking for that. But to clarify, that's all from my vantage point, that's secondhand rumor and innuendo. And throughout, because I think this will be your next follow-up question is, well, were there ever attempts to sell the company? And when I was there, there were always attempts to have investors and have more people invest in the company. And it was Dixie's goal to buy the company from her parents outright so that she could own it completely and run things the way she wanted to without Dallas's interference. So she was always looking for investors and always looking for people to come in and put money into the company. I made the suggestion one time in passing, well, not in passing, in a meeting, and I said, would you like for me to put feelers out and see if WWE would be interested in purchasing the company?
What year would that have been?
Probably 2012.
Okay.
And Dixie's comment back to me was, well, maybe we might want to buy WWE. And that was the end of that conversation, and I never brought it up again.
So when you're saying, they were always looking for investors, what you really mean is they were looking for suckers who would give them their money to keep funding this fucking wet dream of a company that wasn't actually profitable, but not willing to overturn any sort of management that could actually turn it around and make a profit.
Ding, ding, ding.
The rumors and innuendo are that they got all the way down to almost check writing time on the Toby Keith deal, but he wanted new management, and then at the 11th hour, Dixie or her representatives say she has to stay in place as president and remain an on-air character, and that ultimately was the deal breaker. Is that the same rumor and innuendo you heard?
That is.
Okay. The lockdown pay-per-views in 11 and 12 were all cage matches. A lot of hardcore wrestling fans think this is the fucking dumbest thing ever. You're supposed to, based on what we've all, as fans, been taught, you build to a cage match, and you have a match that needs a cage. You don't have a card or a pay-per-view that needs cage matches, or however that analogy goes. I'm not feeling well. I'm not myself. I apologize. Catch me up. What did you think, as an old-timer, as you said, referred to yourself in wrestling, for 2 entire cards to be filled with cage matches?
Hated it. For all the reasons you just said. A cage match should be special, and there should be build, and there should be meaning behind it, and you should build to see it. If you have an entire card full of cage matches, after the second one, there's nothing left to do, and it's not special anymore. I thought it was one of the stupidest ideas, and finally we got them away from it. We only had one in 2013 in San Antonio, and I thought that was a much better presentation.
Who liked
it? Made it mean something.
Who liked it?
Who liked what? The concept of all cage matches?
Yes.
Dixie liked it. I think Matt Conway liked it, and I think that's about where it ended.
Is there anything else you can remember, Sealy, that Dixie really liked?
The X Division.
What did she say about the X Division that annoyed you? Or what about her love of the X Division annoyed you?
My annoyance with the X Division is, to this day, not one single person has been able ever to explain to me what the hell it is. You know, it's no limits. There's no weight limits. There's no age. I don't know what the fuck it is. It's no different than any other division. So there was nothing special about it. Nobody could tell me what the hell it is. And I just didn't get it. I really didn't get it. That annoyed the hell out of me. And there were, I'm trying to think what the hell else, but she had, well, we've always done it that way. It doesn't make it right.
Right.
You know, okay, Dixie. Well, if everybody else goes and jumps off a bridge, is that okay for you to go jump off a bridge? Oh, no, it was stupid.
We got lots of tweets about Awesome Kong and Bubba the Love Sponge. I know what you're going to say. Go ahead and say it.
I wasn't there.
Let's talk briefly about the United Kingdom. You talked about cage matches should be special. I always felt that TNA's television shows they taped over in England came off as special. I'm curious, why didn't they just tape all their TV over there? I mean, they're selling tickets. The crowds are rabid. They have a huge appetite for it. Rather than be number 2 in America, why not go be number 1 in England? Am I just oversimplifying that, or did others share that same worldview?
I pitched that, and the idea was, I mean, it makes sense. It just made sense. They were number 1 in the UK. They were number 1 in Germany. It was a strong brand internationally. And why not go there, grab the money, give it to them. They're hot for it. They want it. Let's go give it to them. Let's get something out of it with a rabid fan base, rabid crowd. Let's go tape some really good stuff, bring it back here, and give the States a rest. Give them a rest. They'll be happy and they'll be longing for you if you stay away long enough. Not too long, but go away for 6 months to a year. Go international where there was a little bit of a demand and where they were drawing houses. So that was suggested, but there was, I think the main reason, the best thing I could say is it was out of fear.
Fear
that they
of what?
didn't do that.
Fear of what?
Fear of failure. And maybe they felt that it cost too much.
Well, let's talk about that. What would the cost difference have been? I know that you had a slightly built-in advantage because the Universal Studios set, you don't have to rebuild and take down. It's just there. So that's good. And I'm sure airfare is super cheap to Orlando. I think it's the Southwest hub. I know there's flights from Nashville there for like $30 or something insane. But what besides airfare and the actual building are the cost differences? And aren't all of those, not all, the majority of those offset by, you know, selling fucking tickets?
Yes. But there was always, we always paid for hotels. We always paid for transportation while the guys were overseas. And I think that still would have been absorbed in drawing a house and making money off of a live gate. There wasn't a penny made off of the live gates in Orlando. Yeah, they did travel packages and they would sell 10 tickets to a VIP meet and greet after the fact. But there was no real money made at all. That was free. It was an attraction at Universal Studios. If you line up at Hard Rock Cafe or NASCAR Cafe or wherever the hell they lined up, you got in free. You didn't even have to purchase a ticket to Universal Studios. So to me, that was a non-issue, and I felt that it was a lost opportunity not to go over there and satiate the appetite and then come back to the States, do the same thing, and have a new plan. As JR used to say, go away and learn a new hole.
Oh, well, there's a fun transition there, but I'm going to avoid it. Let's talk about TV deals. You and I have talked about this off air before, and I guessed that there were really accurately 3 types of television deals as far as the way the money goes. Can you kind of break down to everybody what that would be?
Well, essentially, back in the old days, there were times where, for the old timers, those guys would have their TV shows on in a barter system. And the barter system was simply they would put their television show on, and in any television show, you've got X amount of commercial time. The promoter would sell half of the commercial time. The TV station would sell half of the commercial time. Then comes Vince McMahon, and Vince McMahon is expanding throughout the country, and all of a sudden Vince McMahon is coming in, and he's paying money for that commercial time, or paying money for that time slot that the other wrestling promotions were in. And
that would net the TV station more money in that situation.
Correct.
Okay.
And also, during that time, there was also the beginning of the infomercial. And the infomercial changed television, because now you've got advertisers coming in and doing 30-minute shows and blocks selling one product, and the whole damn thing is a commercial, and they're paying good money for it. So where a television station might say, well, I can go out and I can buy Seinfeld, or I can buy another 30-minute strip sitcom, and I've got to go out and sell that time for X amount of dollars, or Ron Popeil and the pasta maker is going to come in and they're going to pay me $6,000 for that time slot, and I don't have to do shit. And it's $6,000 of profit. So there was that changing attitude. Well, Vince came in, started paying for time slots, and then all of a sudden his television starts getting over, the business gets bigger, and he goes back to him and says, hey, we're not going to pay you anymore. But if you want to continue to have our show and continue to get the kind of ratings you're getting with our show, you're going to start paying us. And then the product became a rights product, where they had television stations that would pay and networks that would pay a rights fee. WWE gets a rights fee for Monday Night Raw and SmackDown and everything they do. They get paid to produce those shows. TNA, when it was at Spike TV, they had a rights fee. They were paid a weekly fee to be on the air, and that fee, that rights fee is what enabled them to continue to stay in business and be profitable throughout their, I don't know if they were profitable or not, but it allowed them to, stay on the air. So you fast forward and you go back 2013 after I left, and the deal with Spike TV was coming to an end. So Spike TV decides that they're not going to renew their current contract with TNA. They say, we don't want any more. So TNA is now in a position where they have no place to air their television show. They get picked up by Destination America. Rumor and innuendo would have you believe that the rights fee that was paid by Destination America was about a quarter of what they were making at Spike TV. And then when that deal blew up, they went to Pop TV. And it's in Dixie Carter's legal statement in the lawsuit between her and Billy Corrigan that the Pop TV deal is a barter deal. And what that means is that TNA produces a 2-hour show. They get half of the advertising time, and Pop TV gets half of the advertising time to sell and do with what they want. So TNA is not getting any money from Pop TV to have their show on the air, according to the court documents that were filed. And as you know, I had told you this way back when, because I'd heard, but it was all secondhand rumor and innuendo. But that secondhand rumor and innuendo turned out to be correct. So that's a situation that they are in now. And as you and I both know as well, trying to buy time on TNA on Pop TV is damn near an impossibility. It certainly is trying to buy it from TNA, because we tried to do that.
We're going to get questions about it, so let's just kind of spill the beans. I'm an asshole, and I am a shameless promoter.
He is, folks. He really is.
If you know me from my mortgage business, I am just shameless when it comes to self-promotion for my business. And I had an idea when Bruce was in town once when we were watching the Hardy Boys, because, man, we love delete, and Broken Matt and all that's brought us this year. Best thing in wrestling this year to me. Anyway, we're watching that and came up with an idea. And I said, hey, man, how cool would it be if we did an episode on TNA and we promoted it inside the TNA show? And this was an idea that I got from reading the Wrestling Observer newsletter, where Dave had published what he thought, or he had heard, the rate was for a 30-second spot. So Bruce and I got busy trying to buy a commercial from TNA and then eventually from Pop TV to promote this very podcast on that show. And, you know, we had the production ability and, you know, we didn't need any help producing a spot. We got that down pat. That's what I do for a living. But we couldn't get a straight answer out of anybody. We emailed somebody we've talked about already today and asked about buying a spot. And I think I'm paraphrasing, but I think the gist of the email was, I wouldn't know who to contact about that.
True that.
So anyway, for what it's worth, we did eventually get a quote from Pop TV, and it was a much higher number than what David reported. I'm not saying that to crap on the Observer.
But the Observer was wrong.
Well, no, maybe not. Let's run through that. The quote he got may have been a part of a bigger package. It may have been a longer schedule. It may have been a longer term buy. It may have been an existing customer. That other customer may have had a lot of tonnage, and they just got that number off of an affidavit. I know for certain when I advertise, I spend less than some others do, just because I buy so much and so far ahead. So I know that type of stuff exists. Either way, don't be surprised in the future if you see a commercial on TNA promoting something to wrestle with.
You know what? Maybe if TNA advertised on our show,
more people would watch.
They might get more people to watch.
Yeah, we're dicks for saying that, but it is worth mentioning that this show does a
I'm a dick.
Of the viewers. Okay, let's talk real quick about a couple of more controversial things, and then we'll wrap this one up. We'll put a bow on it. Jesse Sorensen. Since I can't hashtag Ask Dixie, I'll ask you. Let's catch everybody up if you're not familiar with this name. He was a performer who was with the company in February at an Against All Odds show in 2013. Zema Ion did a pretty standard run-of-the-mill move from the ring down to the floor. When he hit Sorensen fell funny. Immediately anybody watching would recognize, something's wrong. And that something was with his vertebrae and spinal cord. He was... and maybe explicitly, maybe not explicitly, it was certainly implied that he would have a job with TNA for life. TNA does find him an office job, or that's what the rumors and innuendo would have you believe, that he was an assistant and worked in the office. And then he was removed from the website and a month later released. You were there, Bruce. Tell me about when the injury happens. What happened with his hospital situation when this compromise is made, or, the pivot to, hey, we're going to keep him a job. I'm going to ask a money question. Was he making about the same money? And then when he's gone from the company, what was your reaction? Kind of catch us up and fill us in the blanks on all things Jesse Sorensen.
Well, when Jesse got hurt, it was a freak accident. It was a move that they'd done before, and it was simply Zema Ion that hit Jesse on top of his head and crushed his vertebrae. Had it gone the other way, we would be having a completely different conversation right now, and Jesse wouldn't be here. And it was a freak accident. It was exactly that. It was an accident. And very unfortunate one, but I was in the truck when it took place and ran out to ringside. I asked Bernie, who was the liaison at Universal Studios, to call an ambulance, call 911. And people were pretty quick on Johnny on the spot to get to Jesse, but he wasn't moving. And when we left him that night at the hospital, he was essentially paralyzed from the neck down in a bad way. We didn't know if that kid would ever walk again. And it was a sad, horrible situation. But throughout it, I dare say that Jesse Sorensen is a miracle, because he was able to walk out, and he's able to walk, train, and he's still wrestling. We were in a position where no matter what kind of shape he got himself into, and I told him this personally, that I would not bring him back to wrestle, because I know what the injury was, and I know how susceptible that he was to injuring himself further, and I didn't want that to be on my hands. And the doctor that was there that night would have been the one that would have had to clear him, and he wasn't about to clear him. So it was a rough position, and as time went on, Jesse really wanted to wrestle. He needed to work. They did give him a spot where he was working at the television tapings in an assistant role, and an opportunity to learn behind the scenes, the production end of the business. And he was paid the same thing that he was paid off of his contract, which is, in my opinion, the least the company could have done.
Well, no, that's solid though. I mean, that was. I mean, that's a good thing for TNA to do. Why would you say that's the least they could do?
Because it's the least they could do.
Well, I mean, you said that
a guy gets injured on your watch, in your ring, in your conditions, and again, it was an accident. But I guess coming from WWE, if the same thing had happened in WWE, there would have been no question. He would have been taken care of for a long, long time. Would have been taken care of very well.
But is that based on economics or, indifference?
It's based on economics, but it's also based on the human beings making the decisions at the highest level there.
Do you think that when you talk about a guy who was hurt in your ring and you kind of credited WWE, Marty Jannetty's out there walking around on his fucking ankle right now. Why is Vince allowing that to happen?
Well, I don't know I have absolutely no idea what Marty's injuries are. And if I dare say, if Marty had a specific injury that took place that debilitated him in the WWE ring, that Vince probably would have taken care of it. And back in the day, guys hid those injuries because the fear was that you worked hurt. And if you didn't, their fear was, I'm going to lose my spot. So they'd tape it up, and guys would
Bruce,
hide injuries. That's the truth. That's what guys did.
I know that's what they did, but you can't have it both ways and say, WWE would take care of them, but then...
What I'm saying is how do we know that Marty didn't have that injury after he left WWE somewhere else?
Because he taped it up because he was afraid of losing his spot.
How do you know that?
Okay, what are they doing for draws today, 2016?
They made a huge settlement with Draws and took real good care of Draws for many years, and made a settlement with him that he agreed to. After that, took care of Draws for many, many years.
So let's talk about that. Why have we not seen a Jesse Sorensen lawsuit against TNA? Did they make a settlement that we haven't heard about?
Legally, I can't get into it, but
okay, so that's a yes. So we're going to play rumors and innuendo. Bruce Prichard didn't say that. Conrad, direct your hate tweets to hey, it's Conrad. The only way there's not a lawsuit out of this, just putting the simple math together, is that there was a settlement done. So hypothetically, let's go down this rumors and innuendo rabbit hole.
Well, hypothetically, maybe a release versus a settlement per se. But I guess settlement might be hypothetically what you might call what you're calling.
Well, with this release, was there hypothetically a check involved?
Hypothetically, probably.
Okay, let me back up here. Did TNA cover all of his medical bills?
Jesse would say no. Jesse has said no.
Would Jesse or his family have been in...
Jesse's poor mother went bankrupt.
Okay, so that answers that. They didn't pay the medical bills. When this settlement is reached, Does someone from Nashville stick this piece of paper in his face?
No one from Nashville handled that. No, that was taken out of corporate office. Allegedly, yeah.
Hypothetically, somebody from Texas does this. Is this a Carter, hypothetically, or is this an attorney representing the Carters?
You'd have to guess on that one. But I don't see either one of the Carters making a trip from Texas.
Okay, so it's an attorney, and he probably makes a cash offer. Hypothetically, does this happen in a hospital bed?
Hypothetically, it could.
All right. Hypothetically, does this check have 6 digits or 5? It's a rumor. It's innuendo.
Yeah, I don't know. I think. I don't know. I didn't see any check. I didn't see any statement or release or anything like that. So
were there rumors?
Anything to that would strictly be rumor and innuendo. That
the rumors and innuendo in the office. Did you ever hear of any rumors or innuendo that they had settled, that they had handled this, that it was taken care of, so to speak?
Yes, I was point blank told that it was all taken care of.
Who told you that?
Several people.
Can I guess it was Dean Broadhead, who's the CFO?
That'd probably be one of the people.
And would you have said, hey, what are we doing with this? Or how are we handling this? Or were you there when he was released?
I was not there when Jesse was released, no.
Did Jesse reach out to you once he was released or once you left?
Yes, he did.
What did your conversation with Jesse consist of?
Well, Jesse was just like kind of, what the fuck? He was taken aback because he didn't see it coming, didn't expect it, and had been told that he would be taken care of, and had been told that he would have a job as long as he wanted a job. And he still wanted a job. So I don't know what their rationale was, what their thinking process was for letting him go. That's something that was decided after I'd left. And
Bruce, it's clearly a cost-cutting measure, is it not?
I would assume so, yeah. But still,
now, let's talk about that from a cost-cutting measure.
Take the water coolers out. I don't know.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I'm not saying this to shit on Mr. Sorensen or diminish his role or his contributions to TNA. But I would be guessing that his compensation would have been less than $5,000 a month. If I had to ballpark it, I would say $3,000 a month. And when you have $3,000 a month going out as just goodwill to take care of one of the guys who, really sacrificed for you and really did a good job, it seems like you might try to find a way to utilize him. It's not like he's making Hulk Hogan money. And if we're in cost-cutting mode, slashing this is going to mean the difference between can we do this taping or not. It means, hey, maybe we don't cater the show next week.
I agree with you.
Okay. Overall, how would you say TNA handled the Jesse Sorensen situation?
Shitty.
Anything else you want to touch on Sorensen? Or the
No,
way
I think it's been touched on to death, between Jesse and Dixie and all that crap. And it's just an unfortunate situation. It really is. It sucks.
Did you have a specific conversation with Dixie about Jesse?
Well, I had lots of them at the time, but I was led to believe that it was all being taken care of at a higher level. And that it was, when I say taken care of, I was led to believe that they were taking care of all of his expenses, whatever that may be.
Hypothetically, if someone broke their neck, you've made this comparison a long time ago, and you've kind of carried it for a while now. I heard it recently on the Jim Cornette Experience. You have said that someone in Texas at Panda compared an independent contracted wrestler with a plumber. And if you have a contract to build a building, plumbers plumb, it's a job they do. And if one isn't doing the job, you just get another plumber and then the job still gets done. And they kind of correlated that with the independent contractor relationship of Impact Wrestling and a professional wrestler. Is that fair to say?
No, that's exactly true. That's what they said. That was the analogy that was made to me.
So here's a question. Hypothetically, somebody at Panda Energy who's working on the energy side of the business, the profitable side, not Impact, they're working for Panda Energy. If they break their fucking neck, is it handled the same way?
I guess so. I don't know.
Would you think that would be handled the same way, or do you think that they viewed wrestling as...
Knowing how they conduct business, it wouldn't surprise me. There you go.
Okay, let's talk about something else, a little controversial, the Daphne situation. Daphne was injured while she was working for TNA. A lot of people may remember her from WCW. She started as a valet, then did some in-ring stuff, and ultimately she winds up in a situation where she has a workers' compensation lawsuit or claim with TNA, and then the rumors and innuendo would be that she actually had a lawsuit with the company that was eventually settled. Do you have any insight as to what you can separate from rumors and innuendo here?
Well, as far as Daphne goes, she was there when I got there, but I really don't remember because I was just doing backstage production and things of that nature, and I didn't have any interaction with her that I remember. Maybe I did, said hello, and we might have done something, but I can't recall. I don't think I was there when she was hurt, but it did result in a lawsuit, whatever it was. And my only involvement in the lawsuit was being made aware of it. And that's about it. I didn't have a whole lot to do with that situation other than, hey, she's suing us.
Okay, let's freestyle some rumors and innuendo here. Let's just get to it. There's rumors and innuendo that she had a personal relationship with Terry Taylor. Terry Taylor is gone from the company shortly after you get there. And there's supposedly, and I don't know that this happened, this is message board bullshit maybe, but there's rumors and innuendo that he's on tape advising her of exactly what to do to get the company to settle. Was there talk in the office that such a tape existed, or that they had some other form of evidence that Terry Taylor was in her ear about how to squeeze money out of the company?
I've heard those rumors and innuendo, but I never heard any tape, and I don't know if that exists or not, but I did hear those same rumor and innuendo.
I don't know when we'll talk about him again. Do you have any sort of interesting story that you want to share, that you can share right now, that could kind of shed some light on Terry Taylor?
No, not
time?
Interesting.
What time is it right now? Not going to tell that story yet.
Not time for that story yet.
Okay. There's a good story out there, ladies and gentlemen, about
We'll
Terry
tell that
Taylor
when we cover Brother Love.
Oh, I like it. Okay, good deal. Overall, anything else you want to add about Terry Taylor here?
No.
How would, if I was asking Jerry Jarrett, how do you feel about Terry Taylor, what would Jerry Jarrett say?
Well, you know.
What could he have done, to kind of turn this chicken shit gimmick of the Red Rooster into something maybe a little better?
Huh?
Well, there's this old expression, turn chicken shit into chicken salad.
Well, you take what you do is you take the chicken,
right,
and with the walnut, and you chop up the walnuts,
sure,
and then you get the grapes, and you cut, and you cut the grape, and then you get the mayonnaise, when you little salt and pepper, and and then you mix it up, and chickens, salad,
Is TNA going to be part of the legacy of Jerry Jarrett, you think?
He deserves it.
Nigel McGuinness, man, lots of mystery around this guy. I have always been, full disclosure, I was always a big fan of Nigel McGuinness in Ring of Honor. I spent a lot of time enjoying his stuff, and then he eventually makes his way to TNA, and there was lots of question marks about the end of his career, and we're not going to just tiptoe around it. It came out that he had hepatitis, and he has a phenomenal documentary that kind of carries you through the end of his in-ring career called The Last of McGuinness. If you haven't seen it, it's worth checking out. It is a little depressing, just because it's a guy's dream dying right there on camera, and he's very real about it. But for whatever reason, people were very hush-hush about this hepatitis situation. I know it doesn't have the best reputation, and it obviously hurt his career, but, just in real life, people, think of this as like a dirty disease. Kind of carry me through when you first hear about his situation and what led to the end of his run in TNA.
Well, as you said, he was diagnosed with hepatitis, and that came out of a blood test for, I believe it was the State Athletic Commission. I don't know which one, but they did big series of blood tests for the athletic commissions that required that once a year. And Nigel's apparently had come back that he had hepatitis, and he couldn't work. He couldn't get licensed anywhere. And with that knowledge, TNA couldn't allow him to continue to compete in the ring with the threat of him bleeding or spreading that disease. So they couldn't use him anymore. And they tried to use him as a color commentator. They tried to use him for some different things, but it just didn't work.
Well, let's get to it. He was a commentator on Explosion, and you've told me a story off the air that I think people need to hear. The rumors and innuendo, actually it's not, you just told me. You guys you had him making good money for what he was going to be doing on a B show, which was Explosion, and you were honoring your wrestling payday to him in that role. And then he started to make some unusual requests or demands, and you shut that shit down. Can you carry us through that story and the actual day when you kind of lower the hammer, what your back and forth with him was that day?
Well, Nigel had come in. His only role in the company was he was doing this little commissioner thing for Explosion, which was a third world television show, basically. But it was their secondary show and not really seen by a lot of people. Except internationally. It did have some distribution internationally. And Nigel was showing up later and later to TV tapings, and the guys that worked there would have to be there at 1 o'clock, and Nigel, who was local, couldn't show up till 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon sometimes. And I had a talk with Nigel and said, man, I don't know what to do with you. You can't work. And he kept trying to convince us that he was okay to work and that he has a doctor. And I said, man, it doesn't matter. It's out there, and the blood test is what the blood test is. So you can get a doctor that says you can do it, but our doctor says no.
Right.
So this goes on, and I'm asking him to show up on time to do what he needs to do or figure out. And he explains to me that he was auditioning for theater for parts in a play. And there were several plays that he wanted to participate in, and that he had auditions that he had to go to during the day and couldn't get to work where he was paid money to show up for on time because he was auditioning for plays. That was essentially my out, because I said, well, great. You know what? Rather than us stand in your way and rather than having to ask you to show up to work, 2 or 3 hours earlier to do your job that you're getting a check for, why don't we just give you your release, and you can be on your way and you can continue to pursue your theatrical dreams? And his response is, well, it's community theater. And I'm just thinking to myself, this fucking guy is going auditioning for community theater.
Free plays.
And risking his job where he's getting a check with zeros on it.
A comma in it.
And he can't show up to work because he's auditioning for a role in the community theater.
So when he's doing this, or when this conversation happens, you have this edict from the top, hey, we're supposed to be cutting the budget. And now you have a guy who is choosing community service essentially over a paid deal where you're really just trying to give him something to do to be a nice guy, and you feel a little taken advantage of, and it's a little bit like a slap in the face. Is that fair to sum up?
That's fair.
So when you tell him, hey, no, best of luck with your community theater, we're going to part ways, what happens?
It just took him forever to leave. And it was awkward. It was just weird, but he just felt that he was owed a job for whatever reason. And he wanted us to change the way that we did business so that he can continue to do community theater work and whatever else he wanted to do with us. And it just wasn't going to work that way.
Have you spoken to Nigel since you cut him?
No.
He's going to bury you after this. You're in the loop on that,
okay.
Right? Okay.
I mean, I don't know what he can bury me for. I just simply told the truth and told the story of how everything happened.
Where do you watch a movie?
At the movie place.
Come on.
The movie theater. What the hell do you say?
I don't know. I just like the way you say theater. Okay. So
you and Shane McMahon. Shane McMahon is the only other person alive that's ever given me shit about the way I say theater.
Well, hey, we have a lot in common then. Let's run through this. We got 2 things left to get to, and then I'm done. Well, I guess one thing. Let me just mention this because we're going to get tweets about it if I don't mention it. I know what you're going to say. Go ahead and say it. What did you like about working with Kevin Nash and TNA?
Kevin's last day was my first day, and Kevin was gone while I was there.
Okay. The TNA Hall of Fame. You have told me a couple of stories about this that just blow my mind, and I want you to share them with everybody. 1, how the idea comes about. 2, the situation with this watch. 3, the guest speaker for the Hall of Fame, the person who was going to induct Sting and how that came about. And then the way the talent was handled at the actual Hall of Fame. Can you kind of run us through that? Because this is just a fascinating look into all things TNA to me.
Well, Dixie wanted, to do all things, wanted to do all things WWE, I guess. And she wanted to have a Hall of Fame. It had only been 10 years, but by God, she wanted to have a Hall of Fame. And instead of inducting what in most of our opinion would have been the logical inductee at that time, that being Jeff Jarrett, she wanted to induct Sting. And so, by God, we were going to induct Sting. And that was all. I mean, it was one guy at a pay-per-view that we had out in Phoenix. And as we got closer to it, it kind of became the question of what the hell are we going to do? What is the Hall of Fame induction? They were selling tickets to an event, to a Hall of Fame, inducting Sting. But God forbid I ask the question, okay, what is that? Just out of curiosity, what is this that we are selling tickets to? And the answer is, well, it'll be a nice presentation, a dinner, and we'll induct Sting into the Hall of Fame. It's okay. What exactly does that entail? And the only thing that had been thought out at that point was essentially that we would all get together and give Sting a watch and everybody's happy. So people are going to pay to eat dinner and have dried chicken from the Marriott and watch Dixie give Sting a watch. So I tried to get together with folks and tried to come up with some kind of a presentation and tried to do something special for Sting, who is deserving of a Hall of Fame, whether it be TNA or WWE or WCW, whatever. He is a Hall of Famer. His career is worthy of that. So as I'm trying to lay out a presentation, so, well, who's going to induct him? Who can we have from his past? Who can we have from his career? Now, we have Hulk, and we've got Hulk, and that's a good one. But since you only have one guy, what is your show to the audience that is paying money to come and sit down and see this thing? So we wanted to have more people involved other than Hulk and Dixie. So we got AJ involved, and then the suggestion was made, what about Lex Luger? because Lex Luger was an integral part of Sting's history. They were good friends and thought it would be nice to have Lex there. And she was fine with that, but where it became tricky was when I said, well, how much can we pay Lex? And she was a little dumbfounded at the suggestion that we might have to pay him anything, which I was a little dumbfounded that she was dumbfounded, because I'm sitting there thinking that here's a guy who's sitting home not doing anything. I don't know that he was hard up, but he was maybe in need of money, could have used the money. And I didn't want to insult him by saying, hey, you want to come out and eat some really shitty chicken at the Marriott and induct your buddy into the Hall of Fame? We'll pay your airline ticket, but you're going to have to room with Bob Ryder. I just didn't feel that was the way to approach this thing. Finally got him a payday, and we agreed to pay him something. But the interesting thing, I had a little show, just a program laid out.
You said right there, pay him something, which implies what you wound up paying him, you had to kind of beat her up about to get him a little more?
Yes.
Okay.
And so we're trying to lay this whole thing out, and I'm talking in generalities about, well, we've got all the talent there, and she's like, the question comes back to me.
Hey, before, I don't want to cut you off again. I'm sorry to do this. Luger didn't ask for any money. I want to clarify that.
No, he didn't.
Yeah,
but I didn't want to go to him and ask him to do this without offering him money.
Well, I just don't want somebody to hear this and think, oh, and then Luger was negotiating for more money. That's not what
Absolutely
happened.
not.
You just wanted to go and because Vince pays guys $5,000 to do the deal. I don't think that's so super kayfabe number. If you participate in the Hall of Fame, you're getting a check for $5,000. Thanks for playing. I assume that the TNA check was a fraction of that, whatever you guys gave Luger. But even getting that to that point was a struggle with Dixie.
Yes.
Okay, got it. I didn't want to cut you off. I just didn't want the board to say, oh, Luger negotiated more money. No, not true.
No. And so going forward, I'm trying to lay out stuff, and the subject of talent comes up. And someone, and I don't even remember who, asked, so you'd ask me, I really don't remember who asked, but they said, well, do we deduct from the talent's pay for the Hall of Fame banquet? How should we do that?
Oh my God. The dinner, the shitty chicken and the unsweet tea?
Yes. I'm thinking to myself, you've got to, this is a rib. And I'm like, well, no, because it's like $24 or $28 a head.
Wow.
And you want talent to be there and eat for free? So it was an uphill battle. And finally, as I went through the craziness of asking talent to show up, if you'd like to go to the Hall of Fame, which they should want to go to the Hall of Fame and induct Sting and be there, I'm not going to ask them to pay $30 for shitty chicken and unsweet tea. And once we get through that and come up with the decision that, hey, we'll make it an added deal, we'll sit the talent with fans in the audience, and we'll have a talent per table. But Dixie's come back to that was, well, just ask which talent want to come. And we'll just use the ones that want to be there. Some of them probably won't want to come, which was insulting to me and insulting to Sting. And that's me saying it was insulting to Sting, not him saying it. I just thought it was shitty, but that's how they did it. So I'm laying out this little production, and guess who is the only person that shows up on time, actually early, to go over the show that day ahead of the ceremony?
Sting.
Oh, hell no.
I thought Sting was professional. I'm sorry.
He is professional, very professional. That's why he had to go to dinner with Dixie, because, see, she wanted to have dinner with him. She wanted to take him out for a special dinner beforehand, before they actually went to the dinner for the Hall of Fame, because she wasn't going to eat that shitty chicken and shitty iced tea. Wow. Hulk Hogan, the guy that gets the bad rap for, never wanting to do anything and being difficult to work with, is the only guy that was there, showed up early, and was right there. What are we going to do? Dixie didn't show up. Dixie and Sting didn't show up till 15 minutes before we're ready to go live. And it just blew my mind. It really did. AJ Styles showed up. He was late, but he had an excuse. He was doing an appearance. At least he got there. He got there early before the show to go through his stuff. And it just absolutely blew my mind. In addition to that, Al Snow, Pat Kenny, myself, Matt Conway, and Dave Lagana, we were told that they did not have enough meals to feed us.
Oh, my gosh.
So we couldn't eat. We could go. They were going to allow me to go as Senior Vice President of Talent Relations and Programming. They were going to allow me to go to the Hall of Fame dinner, but I couldn't eat because they didn't have enough meals. So I got a case and a half of beer and made sure my guys are taken care of, and we watched the Hall of Fame presentation.
Where did the fans, or where did the boys sit? Did they have their own?
They sat with the fans. There was like one talent per table. So a lot of fans at a table, and they had one talent each at their table.
I'm a watch nerd. As you know, I have a watch collection, and I'm silly for watches. I noticed when I watched Kurt Angle's induction, he was put into the TNA Hall of Fame in February of 2014. And when I watched this, I noticed the Rolex box. I'm going to make an observation for you. They gave Kurt Angle a used Rolex. It was not a new watch. You can tell from the box. If you've bought enough Rolexes, you know that that's a box they don't use anymore. They don't look like that at all, the outer box or the inner box. And the watch they gave him is a stainless date just. Now, I am not crapping on this gesture at all, because Vince McMahon gives people, what's essentially a clash ring. But it's the presentation and the way it's handled. It feels weird to me that they're giving guys used Rolexes. It's almost like if you can't afford a new one, give him a fucking clash ring. Why would you give him a used watch? I'm not saying that they gave Kurt Angle a used watch. I'm just saying they did.
I didn't. I wasn't there.
I'm just
but
saying.
I do know that Sting got a new watch.
And how do you know that?
Because I got it for him.
So what was that process like? If we're negotiating how much chicken we're going to give the talent for free, I can't imagine this process of navigating what watch and which watch with Dixie Carter. Carry us through.
You ever see Rocky 3?
Yep. Thunder Lips.
Well, Clubber Lang. I will describe the process of getting the watch for Sting as Clubber Lang and Rocky 3 in one word.
Okay.
Pain.
What does that mean? You guys just, Nashville's an affluent area. There's multiple Rolex dealers. Did you guys just ride on down to King Jewelers and
it was a constant battle of I want to get him a nice watch, and I have a very dear friend of mine that I've known my entire life who's a jeweler who takes very good care of me. And as you know, getting a deal on a new Rolex is tough.
Yeah, there's a certain amount that you can get a discount on, but not much more. Rolex very closely monitors that resale, where some other brands, they don't.
Right. And my buddy was offering me essentially a Rolex at cost. But I had to battle with Dixie, who was looking online at used watches and things online. And as you know, and anybody that deals in Rolex, usually if you're buying a Rolex online, it is a refurbished used Rolex.
Or what they would call gray market, which would be where a guy's pushing his inventory out the back door. He's been paying interest on it. He doesn't want a case queen, so now he's selling something that's technically new, but it's been in his case 2 years, so he'll push it out the back through a gray market, but then Rolex will not honor the warranty, and they'll even tear out the warranty card. Yes, I'm a watch nerd. I'm just saying.
Yeah, correct. That's reality, folks. The word to the wise, if you buy a Rolex online, you're either getting what Conrad just described, or you're getting a used and refurbished Rolex.
Yep.
Because Rolex does not authorize anybody online to sell Rolex.
Correct.
You got to go to an authorized dealer. And this was an authorized Rolex dealer, and he was giving it to me at cost, and I had to battle with, well, I saw this one online and it was cheaper. I said, then get the one online.
Right.
If you like that one better, then get that one. I've got this one. It's brand new. It's got a warranty. It's got papers. It's got a brand new box. It's all brand new. It's what it is. It is at cost due to a lifelong friendship with my buddy. And
so you kind of go out there painful. On a limb, using a lifelong relationship you have to do the company a solid, and then probably wind up looking like an asshole in this process.
Correctamundo. Yes.
I'm a watch nerd. Nobody listening probably cares. What model Rolex did you guys give him?
I don't even remember. It was a stainless steel, very plain.
Wasn't a Submariner.
Oh no. It was just a
Datejust probably.
Datejust, yes.
Okay. Well, let's wrap
nice
this.
watch. Very nice watch and nice thought.
Super nice gesture. I just felt like giving Kurt Angle a used Rolex is like, give him a fucking ring. Dixie Carter, we're here. This is what we're going to finish on. I found it interesting that, and I don't know what you want to talk about with this lawsuit or don't want to talk about with this lawsuit, but in the middle of, the world coming down crashing around her in October with the lawsuit from American Express and then from the production company and then the state tax lien, and everybody just kind of jumping in there now, multiple lawsuits the same week. And then things seemingly coming to a head with Billy Corgan. And then, of course, we all know the Billy Corgan lawsuit. There's just lots of back and forth and craziness. And are we going to be able to make the next pay-per-view, or can we fund our next set of tapings? Is the show canceled? All around. Dixie, in the middle of all this, sends out a tweet about her action figure. And I was blown away by this and sent you a screenshot like, look at this shit. Because the timing of it just seemed ridiculous to me. And you said, hey, if you only knew. And I even saw a response from Garett Bischoff on Twitter where he said, oh, if you only knew. And I know Bischoff has a lawsuit with TNA, so we're not going to talk about that. But it makes me think, hey, this is worth talking about. It's the Dixie Carter action figure. And on October 21st, right in the middle of this shitstorm, she tweets out, #Flashback Friday to when my action figure first came out. Get one personalized at Shop TNA now. And one of the very first responses was to me that said, is this a #rib? It's not a rib. You were there when this action figure first came out. I want you to kind of talk about the funny story that we don't know about this action figure that Bischoff alluded to. And then I want you to kind of just assess what the fuck is going through her mind to lack the level of self-awareness where in the middle of your entire company, being in doubt and in question and all the talents wondering, do I have a job? Don't I have a job? All these livelihoods are on the line, and you're pushing your fucking action figure on Twitter.
It kind of sums it all up, though, doesn't it? I mean, doesn't that explain a lot?
I've only met her in passing. I met her at a UFC event when the UFC first ran in Nashville. She was there, and she was super nice and hospitable. I met her once at a TNA show. Again, same thing. Very pleasant. Everybody says that, though. She's a nice lady. She's a sweet lady. This seems like narcissism that would even make Vince McMahon blush when your fucking company's going out of business and you're tweeting about your goddamn action figure.
Little scary. When that action figure first came out, she had spots that she wanted run on TV. Where's Dixie? Where you take a picture of the Dixie Carter action figure, wherever it is, and it would be plugged on Twitter and on TV. Absolutely silly. I thought it was absolutely ridiculous. But we we did a retreat about this time. The Wear Dixie campaign was going on, and we, lo and behold, somebody from Nashville, so it could not have been me, had a Dixie Carter figure. And while we were in Cave Creek, we went ahead and shot several Where's Dixie locations with the Dixie action figure. And after a few beers, 30 or 90, we started sending those pictures back to Dixie, and she wasn't all that happy about it. But we had Dixie right there drinking with us. We had the beer bottle, and right there at the Hideaway Cafe in Cave Creek, Arizona. One of the single greatest biker bar you'll ever experience. If you ever go to Cave Creek, go to the Hideaway Cafe. Great place. But so yeah, we had Dixie all over Cave Creek, and she didn't seem to find the humor in it.
So what
we did. We thought it was funny.
What did you guys have the Dixie doll doing in Cave Creek?
Might have done a little pole dancing.
Okay.
Might have had some beer. Might have had some pizza.
Did anybody pour any sugar out into a line?
No, we didn't do that. That would be crass.
Yeah, having her dance on a pole, much classier.
Well, I thought so. But yeah, it was just silly stuff like that. But you're right, and it's, but again, that just kind of sums up why they're in the shape they're in.
Tell me of another instance you can think of. This to me is just, I know I've talked about it, 2 times now, but good Lord, you're in the middle of this shitstorm and you're tweeting about your doll. Like,
well, how about you're in the middle of not being able to pay your talent on a regular basis, and your checks are late, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks late, and you're honeymooning or getting remarried in Ireland with your entire family, tweeting out pictures of staying in Scottish castles every night. Yeah, did that too. And I'm back in the States having to weather the storm, taking calls from guys going, what the fuck? I think you summed it up. It's very little self-awareness and actually realizing what the hell's going on in the real world.
Any other funny or interesting stories you can share with us about Dixie Carter? Let me get my shit in, because I don't know when we'll talk about her again.
Well, no. I don't. I think we've covered. I think we hit the point on TNA, man. I think we did it.
Well, let's do something fun here, and then we're going to run through next week's topics. We actually have, thanks to our good friend Court Bauer, we actually have a Dixie Carter Shop TNA exclusive action figure. It's unautographed, which might actually decrease its value.
Would you autograph it, Conrad?
I think it would be better if you did, and that's not a rib. We're going to give away this Dixie Carter Shop TNA exclusive action figure, and here's what we need you to do to enter. We're going to go ahead and announce the winner on next week's episode. We're going to run through what those topics are in just a minute. But between now and then, to raise awareness about this, we want you to tweet at the show. So send your tweets to @PrichardShow, and we want you to include the hashtag Where's Dixie. And you don't have the doll yet. So instead of doing what Bruce did and have this doll posed up next to a pole or drinking a beer or various other things, we want you to go ahead and shoot the landscape where you will put this Dixie doll when we get it. Where does this Dixie doll really belong? Go ahead and tweet @PrichardShow and use the hashtag Where's Dixie. And then just make sure when you do that, you're including where this Dixie doll should be. And again, you don't have the doll yet, but you will. Thanks to our good friend at MLW Radio, Court Bauer, we're going to get this in your hands. And if you'd like to see it, you can go to shoptna.com and you'll see it right there. Bruce, enough about TNA and hashtag Where's Dixie, but we do want those tweets. Send them our way and we'll get this doll coming to you. Let's talk about next week. Not only will we announce the winner of this doll, we're also going to cover maybe one of our best topics ever. We've got 4 topics this week, and we're going to actually put the poll up earlier than normal. We're going to put it up on Saturday, because I know a lot of you are still going to be stuck with your families and you're going to have extra time in the car, extra time traveling. We're going to throw it up now. The poll will be up until Tuesday morning. So you've got plenty of time to go ahead and get your votes in. Bruce, what is topic number 1 that's going to be on the poll this week?
The Slammy Awards Show 1987.
Lots of fun stuff on that. Most notable from this, well, a few things. One of the first ever table spots, Harley Race is involved in it, believe it or not. The director that appeared and was credited on screen is something that a lot of people still talk about. And a musical performance that would make anybody say,
"Stand back."
I was going for a goddamn pal, but we'll go with that.
Well, stand back works too.
Number 2, Bruce, what is topic number 2 on our list?
Vengeance pay-per-view 2001, the crowning of the first undisputed WWF champion.
Lots of interesting stuff going on here. Let's not forget, this is right after the invasion. So there's 2 world titles here. There's the WCW World Champion. There's the WWE World Champion. And now they're going to put them together and have one undisputed champion. There's a tournament here. Jericho's in it. Rock's in it. Austin's in it. And for the first time, we have an undisputed champion. And if you like that, it just made the list. Topic number 3, Bruce.
John Cena circa 2005, what some people consider when that rocket ship took off, known as the Cena rocket.
So he wins WrestleMania at WrestleMania 21 that year and becomes the world champion. Backing up a little bit, though, when the year starts, which is why we wanted to include this, the Royal Rumble 2005, notable for a finish with he and Batista, and then the McMahon situation, which is hilarious to me as a fan, and we'll cover everything else from John Cena's first year on top, 2005. And last but certainly not least, a little more salacious, topic number 4.
The rise and fall of Sunny.
She comes up from Smoky Mountain with Jim Cornette and Chris Candido, and then gets to the big stage and is quickly put in a major role for the company, becomes the most downloaded celebrity in AOL history, and becomes maybe, I don't know, would you say the second biggest star ever at that time behind Miss Elizabeth, or maybe even bigger?
Yeah, Sunny was huge, man. That was she was a phenomenon unto herself. Very popular, had a great run.
Jim Cornette has described her, and these are his words, not mine, as an out front cunt. So there are probably some funny stories about her backstage, traveling, ribs, lots of rumors and innuendo. I was a huge fan of hers, as was everyone my age. Goodness gracious, in 1996, 97, and 98. Woo! What a fun set of poll topics, and you get your pick. Just throw us a follow at Prichard Show. And this show is coming out on Black Friday. This is the biggest shopping day of the year, and you've got 3 sites you need to go to, and I'm going to give them to you in order. Number 1, notarib.com. Why do they need to go there, Bruce?
Because it's going to be the place where you can get tickets to our first ever live Something to Wrestle With in Orlando, Florida, WrestleMania weekend, Saturday night, April the 1st at Black Booth, 2 blocks from the Amway Center where NXT is taking place that night. The show starts right after NXT at Back Booth. And you can get your tickets. Get them now. Get them early because there's a limited number of tickets. It's going to be standing room only at notarib.com to get your tickets. We got VIP tickets, general admission tickets, but I cannot say it enough. Get your tickets early. And they make a great Christmas present. But if you're going to be in the Orlando area for WrestleMania, come on out and see me and Conrad at Back Booth Saturday night, April the 1st.
And you don't have to pick. It's not like you're going to NXT or this. You can do NXT, and at the conclusion of that show, walk less than 5 minutes, and bam, you're right there at Back Booth. The website you need to go to second after that is to pick up the ultimate wrestling present for the wrestling fan in your life, or go ahead and get your attire early for the very first ever Something to Wrestle With. And that's ProWrestlingTees.com/Bruce Prichard. If there's one picture you need in your photo album, it's a picture with Brother Love, with you wearing the Brother Love shirt. You could grab that. I used to be over. Rumors and innuendo. I wrote this shit. I was there when Brett screwed Brett. And on and on and on. Go to ProWrestlingTees.com/Bruce Prichard. Don't put a T in his name. Put one on your back. And website number 3, and tell them how to go there, Bruce, leatherbydan.com.
Well, you got to go there if you want to have your very own custom championship belt made by one of the greatest championship belt makers in the world. Leather by Dan, you can go and you can get the Something to Wrestle With special, only $1,050, and that's going to bring a belt to you, designed by you and made by Dan, at a price you simply can't beat, in a turnaround time of less than 12 weeks, and you damn sure can't beat that anywhere in the industry. So if you're a championship belt fan, you want a belt to prove that you're number one, get it from Leather by Dan.
Hey, and let me go ahead and say, if you're going to go ahead and snag one of these belts between now and December, and you place your order, Bruce and I will make sure that you get complimentary tickets to the very first edition of the Something to Wrestle With live show. And the rumors and innuendo are that Leather by Dan himself will actually be there. Check out his work, leatherbydan.com. You're going to be glad you did. Bruce, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate you taking time and putting up with me, pushing you and urging you to, hey, let's do it again. Hey, we can do better. But I really do feel like we gave everybody what they needed with this week's episode, which is TNA Part 2. All right, Bruce, as usual, has a lot to say. Tune in next week. And don't forget to go ahead and vote on this week's topics. It's at Prichard Show. He is on Twitter at Bruce Prichard. I'm on Twitter at Hey, it's Conrad. The official show account where you can shape the show is at Prichard Show. Throw us a follow. You'll be glad you did. And we'll see you here next week on Something to Wrestle With.